that end. And from Parliament, the vetting of Professor George Magoha for the Cabinet Secretary in charge of education is about to begin in Parliament. We will try and get as much as we can from that vetting exercise. And of course, we have our reporters covering where you are the whole day with all the stories that are breaking and making news. And let's now begin with Kisumu just to find out what they have on their diary this morning. Oko Kusa now joins us live. Oko, good morning and good to see you. Tell us what's happening in your county.
Yes, good morning, Ken. Here in Kisumu, we are expecting the sugar task force, that is the government-formed task force committee that is moving around the country to collect views from farmers. Today, they are scheduled to meet farmers in Muhoroni. Remember, yesterday, the meeting in Chemelil was scuttled after farmers walked out demanding that their arrears must be paid first before they can participate in that meeting. We don't know whether that is going to be replicated in Muhoroni today, but we'll be keeping our eyes on that. It's a very emotive subject down here in the Nyanto Sugar Belt, together with the Western province, where farmers have been up in arms against poor performance of mills, especially those that are state-owned. So we'll be keeping an eye on that meeting in Muhoroni today. Again, yesterday there was a man who committed suicide as a result of domestic violence, and we'll be following up on that story because this is the second time somebody is committing suicide down here. Just 2 days ago, a 16-year-old girl also committed suicide in the neighboring Nyalenda slums. So my colleague Doreen will be up on those two stories to find out what is the cause of this rise in suicide cases down here in the Lakeside County of Kisumu. Back to you, Ken.
Right, Oko Kusa, that is one of the topics that we are discussing this morning. I have members of the clergy right here. So that's one of the things we'll be talking about, just the ills in the society. But now let's cross over to Kevin Mutai, who is also joining us from the county of Mombasa. Kevin, good morning and good to see you. What do we expect from Mombasa?
Good morning to you, Ken. We have a lot of stories lined up for you from the coastal region, including Mombasa and other coastal counties. But to begin with Mombasa, what we are informed that is yet to happen is that the county's biggest referral hospital, that is the Coast General, is yet to dispose of the uncollected bodies. This is after the hospital's officials say that the time that they gave, that is notice that they gave to relatives of the deceased persons to come and collect their bodies already lapsed, and what they'll be doing today is conduct a mass burial to dispose of these bodies. Also within the county of Mombasa, we are expecting the Kenya Coast National Polytechnic to conduct its graduation today, and the PS Department of Vocational Training, Kevit Desai, is set to grace that particular function. And also another story that we're following up in Mombasa is the relocation of the Kipevu Oil Terminal, which is conducted by the Kenya Ports Authority, and the Managing Director Daniel Manduku says that the project is already on course and works have already begun, and relocating that particular project worth that is being done at a cost of 40 billion shillings, crossing over to Kilifi County, where we have the county assembly officials has adopted a motion demanding that the county executive members in charge of the departments of gender, sports, youth and culture, and also that of trade, tourism and cooperative to come up with the county cultural festival aimed at promoting both local and international tourism. Across to Tana River now, we have the former 6 officials at the former administration are yet to face charges at the Malindi court. This is after that the suspects were found guilty, and the charges they are yet to face is by flouting procurement laws and conducting irregularities in award of tenders to a tune of up to 30 million shillings. That is also what we are following up for you. And also, Ken, in Kwale County, we have the Kenya Bureau of Standards that is yet to tackle, rather to observe a court order that was issued by the High Court to do a testing, or rather retesting of the sugar belonging to the Kwale International Sugar Company. Remember that this company has been dormant for quite some time now, and we are told that KEBS are yet to respect that court order and conduct that exercise. Finally, in Taita Taveta County, the investigative bodies are currently on such investigating claims that there are health workers in public hospitals who are allegedly selling drugs meant for these public facilities, and we are told that there are claims that some officials are allegedly involved in selling these particular drugs to private facilities by rogue workers. Ken, we have all that lined up for you. We are up together with my colleagues across the region, but of course with Peter Wainaina and Karim Rajani here in Mombasa. We're making sure that we'll have all that for our viewers in our subsequent bulletins. Back to you, Ken, in studio.
Indeed, Kevin, you have quite your plate full. Right behind Kevin is the editorial meeting going on in Mombasa. They're ready to bring us all the stories that are happening from the coastal region. Let's now cross over to Nyeri, where Melita Oletenges also joins us live. Melita, good morning. What do we expect from Nyeri?
Good morning, Ken, and good to see you. In fact, here in Nyeri we have recent developments actually. Nyeri MCAs have written to the DCI wanting the DCI to investigate fraudsters who they claim that are impersonating them, and they are asking for money from the residents and the people who they represent in the name of being their MCAs. Ken, this is something that has caught our eye particularly because this is something that we've heard of in the past, but we've not been able to verify. And yesterday the MCAs from Nyeri had a special sitting just to discuss these issues, and in fact writing to the DCI asking the DCI to investigate this matter, and we'll be keen to see how this unfolds, and we'll be also speaking to a number of MCAs later on in the day. But also, Ken, in the business front, we have Toyota Kenya opening up their branch here in Nyeri today, of course to expand their business and market here in the central region at large, and we'll also be keeping a keen eye on this. Also, there will be a special lecture today at the Dedan Kimathi University just to the students there, just to lecture them on the Sexual Offences Act. Remember, this is something that in the past has been seen to have very strict measures on men and not on women. So there will be a special lecture there just to highlight some of the key issues to observe when it comes to sexual offences, and this is also something that we will also be following up keenly. Also, Ken will be keeping an eye on what other stories that will be developing through the day. But for now, that is all from Nyeri County. Over to you.
Melita Oletenges, thank you very much. Melita is keeping an eye on what's happening in the county of Nyeri, and at the end of the day, we expect to get all those stories from Nyeri. Let's just go to Melita's neighbor, and that's Martin Mwaura, who joins us now from Muranga. Martin, good morning. Good to see you also. Tell us what to expect from Muranga.
Good morning, Ken. It's a bright Thursday morning from Muranga County. Now, I just want to bring to your attention what is happening, as you rightly said. Yesterday, when I gave the morning brief, I told you that, I told Dan Mwangi, who was in studio, that a student from Gatanga CCM, that is in Gatanga constituency, died over the weekend. The family raised issues accusing the school of being slow to give medical attention to the student. Now, Ken, an autopsy was done yesterday at Montezuma morgue, and it emerged that the girl died out of a head injury. The police, I've just spoken to the county police commander, who has informed me that the police have opened an inquest and have started the investigations. Now they have interviewed some students and the school management, and it is emerging that the girl have fallen down from her bed January. Actually, if I can quote the date, it's on 28th of January, where she fell from her bed at night. It said that she was dreaming and then fell from the bed. But the case was never reported to the institution, as it is said that she had any so no need of reporting. Now, Ken, the police are investigating on it. And something else I would like to bring to your attention. Okay. Now, again, something else that is happening in Murang'a. The county commissioner of Murang'a, that is Mr. Said Bare, yesterday toured Kegumo in company of the regional commissioner, Mr. Wilfred Nyagwanga. And Ken, I want to tell you that he brought up a very serious issue. He accused the Matatu owners or Matatu plying the Kegumo route of recruiting Mungiki to intimidate other new drivers from accessing that road. It is said that it's only that Kegumo Traveller Sacco is only allowed to
Right, we are having a small challenge right there with the network connection with Martin Moura from Murang'a, but Martin will definitely be joining us in the course of this broadcast. Now, before we come back to studio, let's go to the last county. That's County 044, the county of Migori. Bernardo Joang this morning is in Awendo, that's the Sugar Belt, speaking to us. Bernard, good morning. Good to see you. What do we expect from that county this morning?
Well, thank you very much, Ken. We are here at Sony Sugar. Remember what's going on here. This is the second day that task force committee led by Agriculture CS Mwangi Kianjuri, and the team are currently are expected here to address farmers following the ongoing problems that has been affecting the operations here at Sony Sugar and even at the factories. And yesterday committee and they were being criticized by the farmers here, saying that the move that they took, talking to farmers, was not appropriate, and whatever they were talking about, they were saying that they are demanding that the government allow them to allow them at least operate freely, so that they can be able to sell their products to any companies as a way of solving the issue of payments, the delayment of payment. And currently we are going we'll be attending whatever going the meeting, and we'll be covering that, and also we'll be doing we'll be having some of the interviews with the farmers there and also the people concerned, so as to get what is it that the farmers need. Back to you.
Bernard, thank you. The CS for Devolution for Agriculture, Mwangi Kianjuri, is expected in the county of Migori to address the farmers, and Bernard will be reporting on that. All right, as I said, this morning we are in the presence of the Lord. We are having a discussion this morning with bishops from 4 countries. They are right here in studio. I'll be speaking to them shortly. But before that, let's set the pace for our discussion this morning. The Kenya Media Sector Working Group has called on the Director of Public Prosecution and the police to investigate controversial preachers over threats and smear campaigns against the media. Now, this comes after the Neno Evangelism Center Pastor James Nganga threatened Citizen TV journalist Linus Kekai, as well as controversial preacher Dr. David Oward's followers, reportedly conducting online bashing against any media outlet that points out the preacher's questionable activities or those of their ministries. Now, the Journalists Union insists that the media will continue to stand on guard as a watchdog, leaving no individual or institution behind.
Please separate preaching na hizo sarakaza news anchor. Separate. Nakwambia tu kijana. I'm telling you like a chief general commander. Chief general commander.
The words of a controversial preacher stirring up more controversy. Neno Evangelism Center's Pastor James Nganga fires a shot against the media, and specifically at Citizen TV's Linus Kakai, who called out controversial preachers such as himself. The media stakeholders are not taking it lying down.
Media, as the fourth estate, has a duty to hold other estates, including the clergy, to account for their actions. The work of religious leaders impacts the society, and the media must interrogate them on behalf of the public, which the two institutions serve, without fear or favor.
So nothing can stop the religious sector or any other Kenyan who feels aggrieved from coming to the media council to complain. But to unleash, send out sponsored clips to attack journalists and media, that is unacceptable.
Nganga is not the only man of the cloth who has been in conflict with the Fourth Estate. Dr. David Award, the self-proclaimed prophet's followers, have, like clockwork, launched online attacks on any media outlet and its journalists who cover a story that sheds negative light on him or his ministry. The most recent incident was the property debacle that saw the Ministry of Repentance and Holiness stand accused of brainwashing a Nairobi lawyer and taking over her property. With such allegations and Nganga's accusations of killing a woman in a road accident in 2015, as well as the preachers hoodwinking unsuspecting people, the calls for action are getting louder.
The Kenya Media Sector Working Group takes great exception to such behavior from the religious leaders and draws the attention of the National Police Service and the Director of Public Prosecution to the actions of these said religious leaders, especially their issuing of direct threats to journalists as well as online bullying by their followers.
Church leaders have been urged to call out preachers who do not represent the ideals of the faith they purport to profess, so as to shield the integrity of Christianity. Helen Aura, NTV.
Well, very interesting conversation right there. The media taking a stand against the religious leaders who are attempting to threaten the media, to call them not to speak out to what's happening. But the media will not be shut down, or we will not be shut up. We will continue speaking. All right, let me bring the conversation back to studio, and I'd like to introduce my guests. I hope I get them right. Let me begin from Bishop Nicodem from Benin, right? As from Benin, then we have Bishop Ziwa from South Africa.
Yes.
Exactly. Then we have Bishop Stephen from Nigeria.
Yes.
And of course, our very own Joseph from Kenya, right?
Yeah.
Right, gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us, and welcome to NTV. Let's talk about that story first, because the media is up in arms against preachers. I know this is a traditional church. This is the church as we knew it, but there's so many ministries that have come up. And as a result of what has been happening, he can testify, he is in this country. There's a lot of back and forth, and this resulted from a long recording that was posted online a few days ago by one of the ministry preachers in the country called Nganga, and it was a reaction from a stand that was taken on the media calling for regulation. So that's where the foundation of that story. So your initial comments, the back and forth between preachers and the media, is it healthy? Let me begin with you right at home.
I don't agree that it's healthy at all, because these are the two teams that can work together, actually for the glory of God. So what I'm expecting is that media or journalists and the men of the color should come together and see how these two can work together. And especially when we are talking about technology, we need media in order to go out of our boxes and preach the gospel. Evangelism is enhanced by the media. And if we start fighting the people that are supposed to help us, that's quite contradictory.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Was it right for the media, for example, to take a stand? Because this is a debate that has been there since 2014, if I'm not wrong, about regulation of churches. But perhaps, was it right for the media to take a stand and make it clear why the religious sector needs to be regulated?
Yeah, I think the media is right in doing that, in that they will introduce a debate that will help us, make some informed decisions And especially when we know that this country has over 300,000, you know, denominations. When we know again that despite having all that number of denominations, the country actually comes in number 4 in terms of corruption. We know of countries where there are about 15 denominations. The country is very, very good and sound, morally and ethically. But when now it comes to media, you know, appearing as if they are fighting against the church, that doesn't really sound right.
Okay.
The stand is quite right, and because it will help, you know, test the faith or the foundation of our faith in a way that will be put in balance.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll skip Bishop Stephen for good reason. I know Nigeria also has its own story, but I like to go to South Africa for obvious reasons again, because one of the reasons that was raised is because of one of your preachermen there, Lukau, right? Yes. Who last week or 2 weeks ago purported to have raised someone from the dead, right? And then he recounted that statement later and apologized for stage managing that. But that is the story that is also in Kenya. It's not different from Kenya. But now the media is calling for regulation. Perhaps your thoughts on this?
The emergence of harmful religious practices is not uniquely Kenya or any other country. It's a global phenomenon, which is a concern. The main thing is to ensure that religious practitioners or media or any other practitioner should be held accountable in one way or the other. It is easier to deal with bigger institutional churches because they've got their own accounting processes when someone begins to engage in harmful religious practices. But the danger is that there are stand-alones who do not account anybody. And so they overstep the line and behave as if they are direct agents of God or even assistants of God. So I think every country then should have systems of holding individual practitioners, whether religious or not, to account and not to do harmful practices that harm people and abuse the faith of communities.
Okay, so you agree. Let me come back to Nigeria. Nigeria, as he says, is not uniquely Kenyan. It's all over. Yes,
it's all over.
It's all over.
Yeah, it's all over. There are these many excesses, you know, that we experience from individuals who establish churches or preaching posts and so on, and they make fantastic claims as well. Some is neither here nor there, but I think it is important for religious leaders, for churches, to expect to be held accountable, you know, for their pronouncements, for their practices. I mean, we are all, you know, in this movement trying to work for greater transparency. And so if the media decides to shine its torch or its light on religious bodies, I don't think there's anything bad about it. Jesus went about preaching, doing what he did, and in the full glare of the public. And so I don't think that, and if we are doing right, if what we are doing is right, is just in terms of and holding all the ethical principles in place, I don't think we need to be afraid or we need to engage in you know, fracas or arguments about the media and so on. I think the media has a responsibility in its own setup, and we as religious leaders also have responsibilities. And where we can, we should, you know, check excesses of practitioners.
How do you deal with the standalones? How do you deal? What is the story, for example, in Nigeria? How do you deal with the standalones? Because Methodist is a big church. Yes, Anglican, Catholic, SDA. But how do you deal with the standalones before I go to Benin?
Well, it's a challenge. One of the things we're trying to accomplish is to try and see if we can bring the standalones together into a kind of body that, you know, they belong to. In Nigeria, for instance, we had a situation where when we wanted to come together, Christian Association of Nigeria, we had a problem of how do you deal with this standalone or too many churches, independent and so on. So we had to decide on kind of grouping for them. That is to say, okay, if you are Pentecostal and have similar practices, you can band together, and then we start to channel the inquiries and so on to that body. Okay. And so to encourage or to discourage people standing alone so that we can reach them. Otherwise, it's very difficult to get across to them, except when you have challenges, big issues like you know you are talking about.
Okay, it's been a concern here too. Let me hear from you, Nicodem. Your experience in Benin. You share the problem across the board, or in Benin it's a little different?
Yeah, it is the same problem.
Same thing.
Yeah,
same problem.
Same problem.
Okay.
But like he says, we leader churches must be careful for using media in depression.
Okay. Okay. As a result of this, the Christianity has been sort of diluted. We have prosperity preaching. I assume it's shared across the board, because that's the story in this country. We had a lot of mushrooming churches. Every corner you turn, there is that. I want to talk about the church and politics now. What is the relationship, and where do we draw the line? Anyone, where do we draw the line between the church and the politics?
Well, as it is, we shouldn't expect that the church shouldn't be fully involved in politics, although the politicians would not expect the church really to involve itself in politics. But actually the gospel that we preach, it's universal. It is there to just act the way the media is acting, to check the communities, to check the politicians, and to provide the direction. So you cannot really separate the church from politics. After all, the politics that we experience in the church sometimes can be even worse than the politics we find in the world. So the church is there as part of the culture of any society, and there can't be any society without a culture. And the church is an important tool, or an important tool to play a role, a very important role in this kind of society.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. The church is at the center of quite because you have quite a large number of people who belong in churches, and you know we are all political animals, so to speak. So, but what the church tries to do is to encourage the leadership of the church not to engage in partisan politics, because of the dangers that is inherent in that. Yes, we can go with political discussions. We understand, and the church actually has a unique private position of holding the politicians in check, by making pronouncements and by trying to remind everybody of the responsibilities that we have, that God has placed on us, especially in terms of considering the people, the poor, the neglected. A lot of times, the politics we experience is not the politics that is solely addressing the issues like the church we want them to address. And so we are constantly there to say, look, this is the way we think should go. This is not sufficient. This is not enough. You should move this way. So there's always that kind of.
They listen.
Oftentimes, They don't.
They don't.
Unfortunately,
yes.
oftentimes they don't.
Okay.
But then that is why we need to persist in saying what we are saying and in creating good civic education opportunity for our members, for the membership of the church. How to engage, how to engage the society, the politicians, the leadership. That is where the relevance of the church is coming. We have to hold the leadership accountable for its actions and so on. So we cannot say we are divorced from politics altogether, but we are in it, to try and bring changes that might make significant difference for our people.
Okay, and of course, Bishop Zewa, the church is where the politicians fish.
Yeah.
That's their ground. In Kenya, for example, we have a problem because there is a divided opinion over where to draw the line between politics, church, and the politicians.
Yes.
And one of the main challenges is the politicians taking advantage of our churches in terms of even the amount of money they donate to churches so that they become beholden. The church becomes beholden. So where do you draw the line, for example, Bishop?
I think you believe that the first thing is that God is God of all life. And is the Lord of all the experiences in life, whether it's business, politics, religion, entertainment, you name it, God is God of all. The church is a mediator in society. The church works for the well-being of society and also to ensure that people behave in ethically acceptable ways. So therefore, the church is expected not to be partisan, not to affiliate, especially those who are in leadership, because in all our churches, there are people who come from different political affiliations. So the church, therefore, should not be partisan and should not be factional as well, because sometimes within one political formation, there are factions. So when the church gets involved, gets captured, gets aligned or bought, it loses its integrity for a credible witness in society. Okay. So yes, everybody, including politicians, should be held accountable, and the church should be in the forefront of guiding the values that will make life better for all.
But how do you draw the line? Who draws the line, the politicians or the church itself?
Well, the church has a role to play. The role of the church, because politicians don't stay in one place. There are no permanent enemies and there are no permanent friends in politics. Okay. So therefore, when you align with individuals and allow individuals to dictate what happens to society, you're running a risk. So the church as a community should be able to welcome all, should be able to be in the forefront of holding the banner of values up, irrespective of who the person is, and should assist those who have the responsibility of power, particularly in politics, because they affect the lives of many people. So assist them, not fight them, assist them to remain honest to what they are called to do, to lead in a life enhancing way, not individually, because the danger is when politics become politics of the stomach. So we should assist our politicians not to be captured in those ways of doing things.
Okay.
I think there is an example where the church got involved in late 19th century, and that was the Methodist Church in particular, where they looked at Methodism as a gift from God, and it's a gift that required personal holiness and also social holiness. And because of that, they improved the way people worked in the textiles, when everywhere else in Europe was uprising with the French Revolution in 1889, I think. in Great Britain, where the movement of Methodists was very strong, that kind of revolution was avoided.
Okay.
It never took place there because the church involved itself in politics and actually managed to transform the perspectives or the way the industries worked then.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bishop Nicodem, the church has been accused of not speaking out or not saying enough. And whenever they say something, it's not what is expected. They don't take a proper stand. They always leave it open, give a blanket approach to issues. Do you agree, especially where politicians are concerned?
Yeah, thank you very much. We know that Jesus says, we are the salt of earth and the light of the world. In this mind, we know that the church of the leader churches must preach to help the politician to know the right way to do the politics in the society. So I know that the leader, the churches must give to the politician the right way, and the church must be careful must fight against corruption in the society. That is my view.
Your view. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We are on standby also with the vetting of Professor George Magoha. He is the nominee for the Ministry of Education to replace Ambassador Amina Mohammed. I'm told as soon as we are ready with that, we'll try and go to Parliament and see what's happening there. But let's talk about the church. I want to go beyond the walls of the church and talk about how do we get to the public space and share the faith with the people who don't come to church. And let me begin now from South Africa. How do we get out of the walls of the church and begin to invade this public space to share our faith, to draw more people into church?
As the bishop has said, that we are called to be the salt of the earth and not to be hiding in corners of the church. And so, and one of the earlier church fathers, St. Augustine of Hippo, as way back as around the 4th century, he made a statement which says, because the church are the custodians of hope. And he said, hope has two daughters, anger and courage. Anger at how things are turning out to be, but also courage to confront and work towards a changed reality. So the church is not only when it meets. Okay. The church is found in society, in workplaces, in schools, in hospitals, even in parliaments. So the church is there. So when our members leave on Sunday or whatever day of worship it is, and participate in those spaces, they should be influencers. They should be influential and live out their faith in where they find themselves. But those in leadership, therefore, that's why it is important that they be careful to play a mediator role in society, so that they are able to speak on behalf of the community, to say, thus says the Lord, this thing is not acceptable, this is the way. Okay. And sometimes when they are too close to power, sometimes they are muzzled, they're not able to speak, because closeness to power can be a dangerous thing as well.
You don't speak with your mouth full.
You said it.
Bishop Stephen.
Yeah, I want to say that the church has a responsibility to take its message to the people. Let me draw from what the bishop said about our founding father, John Wesley. He took his message beyond the four walls of the cathedral, of the church, and was on horseback. And it's on record that he rode over 250,000 miles in his lifetime, and for that for that alone, by that alone, you cannot imagine the hundreds of thousands of people that came under the powerful influence of his ministry.
Okay.
And so there has always been there the need for us to look at ways and means of getting the message across. And that's why we cannot, in fact, neglect the media, because we need the media, modern communication equipment to reach to millions of people out there. Because remember, the church has its mandate to proclaim, to teach, you know, in all the different parts of the world, to the uttermost parts of the world. And we cannot rest until this is achieved. So social media, for instance, has become a good way. And that has even allowed us to have different ways of making sure that the church lives, you know, to its mandate of reaching the whole world.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, this is again where we remind ourselves that we are called to uphold the commandment, or the great commandment of Jesus Christ, where he said, you love God and your neighbor, and also fulfill the great commission, whereby you go out to the world to evangelize and make the peoples of the world the disciples of Jesus Christ. So when you are loving God and loving your neighbor, you have to get out, to look for the neighbors, the person or where the need is. And I don't think the need will be within the box. The needs are out there, and that's why the Methodists will always emphasize social holiness. Where there is poverty, you go and address the issue. Where there is any sort of vice, you go there and address the issue. Okay. Where if people are suffering, you go there and address the issue, because that's where the need of the neighbor is.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm told that we have to cross over to Parliament at some point, but before we do that, because we're not sure if we're going to get back, there is this inaugural African Methodist Council Conference. I'd just like to take a minute each to speak about this, and because let me begin from Bishop Nicodem. What do we expect out of this conference? Then we can do around, and then we cross over to Parliament.
This conference is very important for the Methodists in Africa, because we know that the Methodists in Africa is a response of the life in Africa.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Bishop?
We long for a Christ-healed Africa, the whole of Africa. And so wherever we find the Methodist, the Wesleyan family, we need to join hands and strengthen our united Christian witness for a better Africa in many ways, in conflicts, in poverty, in diseases. We need to join our forces and work together towards that. So this is one of the expected outcomes. Let's say, how do we strengthen that?
Okay.
The journey to this point that we are having our first conference has not been that quick. It's been long, it's been for many years, but we believe that it's important for us, you know, to come together on the continent of Africa as belonging within the Methodist families, you know, to show that we can make a difference on the continent, because of the things that we already know that we do as Methodist people.
Yes.
But when we come together, we'll be a great witness, not beyond the continent of Africa, even to the rest of the world. But we have a lot that we want to accomplish within our continents. You know, resocializing, that is looking at taking on conscience issues, taking on ethical issues, making a difference, getting the voice of the African Methodist people, you know, through the governance, through the economy, through the social political spheres. Okay. That's what we are hoping that this conference will achieve for us. We keep spreading the good news that has been our mandate.
Okay.
Yeah, Ken, we believe Methodist movement is a gift from God for this continent. It has solutions to our political and economic instabilities, because where the Methodist Church has really acted right, nobody else has done it better.
Yes.
And we think when we get together as the ends of the churches in Africa, we can also provide a platform where solutions are found for this continent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, gentlemen. We're just short of time because there's something else that is happening, but the conversation about the church cannot end. And this conference is definitely something to look out for, and look out for what will be shared across the board. But we are taking a break. When we come back, let's just show you the pictures from Parliament right now. This is Professor George Magoha. He's already seated there for the vetting. He is being vetted for the position of the Cabinet Secretary for Education to take over from Ambassador Amina Mohammed, who was taken to spot. When we come back, we'll be taking you live to Parliament. Stay with us. NTV Today continues in a moment. And welcome back to NTV Today. Ken Mijungu in studio. We're covering all the stories you need to know. One of the most important stories we're following up for you is the approval of Professor George Magoha for the position of the Cabinet Secretary for Education. And that's what's going on currently in Parliament. Let's take you now to Parliament and listen in.
That your vast experience will contribute to serving this nation in that capacity and in that particular docket. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir, honorable members of Parliament. I'm Professor George Albert Omore Magoha. I was born some 52 years ago in Kisumu East, the current hospital at Kisumu East, and went to primary school in Game and Nairobi. My primary school was at Dr. Livingstone, after which I joined Starehe Boys Center, where I was trained to be what I am today. After Starehe Boys Center, I went to Strathmore College, and from Strathmore College, I was taken then by the government through a scholarship to the University of Lagos, originally University of Zambia, but there were issues there, so I went to University of Lagos, where I trained as a physician, and continued from there to train as a surgeon and urologist. From there, I also went to the Royal College of Surgeons in Ireland, the Royal Postgraduate Medical School in London at Hammersmith, and much later in life to the Stanford University Graduate School of Business. My trajectory from the medical perspective has been extremely eventful because I started teaching in 1979 at the University of Lagos, and was then requested to come to Kenya in 1987 when the late Professor Wori died. The government was looking for Kenyans abroad, and I was approached and came. At that time, I had to leave a well-earning salary of over 100,000 shillings to come and start earning 6,000 shillings because I thought I had something to offer. On coming to Kenya, I took a job which was basically below what I was expected to do. I started on as a lecturer, but within a year I went on to be a senior lecturer, and passed very quickly through the ranks from 1988 to the year 2000, when I became a full professor of urological surgery. So the vertical trajectory, in 1999, I was tried as a chairman of academic department of surgery as an acting chairman, then later confirmed. And since I'm very firm, even though I was approached to be a dean, I said I was not going to be a dean because I was not going to campaign to anybody. But the staff told me, no, that's precisely why we want you to become the dean. So I became the dean of the Faculty of Medicine in the year 2000. And when I went to the dean's office, it looked like a pigsty. So that's where it started. I basically went to the VC and told him, well, I cannot sit in this office because I'm the dean of the Faculty of Medicine. And he said, well, my son, there's no money. I told him, but there's a lot of money out there. You just need to go and look for it. And he said, go and try. 2 weeks later, I was back with 10 million shillings from my Korean colleagues. And then for the first time, I got a bit annoyed with my very good friend and mentor, Professor Kichaga. He said, but you can't build your office until you build that of the principal. So I asked him, but why didn't you tell me before? He said, no, I did tell you before because I was sure you were not going to get the money. So it took me another 6 weeks to convince my colleagues there. And I got another 20 million shillings, so together about 30 million. We rebuilt the dean's office, the principal's office, and all the other facilities that go with them. Now, I didn't know that that is what was going to propel me into the administration of the university, because a year later, Gijaga then comes and tells me, no, Professor, you come, go to the next office as I consult. I passed senior deans who had been there before, and I was principal of the college for 1 year again, before I was told, now come to the main campus, where I was appointed Deputy Vice Chancellor in charge of Administration and Finance in the year 2002. And for those of you who are in Nairobi then, I asked the permission of the Vice Chancellor and transformed the parking space and everything else there. And at that time I was being told, why are you beautifying the outside? But that came to pass. When it came to 2004, and we had a new Chancellor, who insisted that we had to look for a Vice Chancellor from outside. I personally did not see anything wrong with Professor Kemba. So I told Professor Kemba, I don't think I was going to apply, because as a loyal servant, as I was trained at Starehe Boys Center, you get satisfied with what you have. Kemba told me, no, but Professor, you should also just apply. You never know. So there was an international advert through the international press, and we were shortlisted, and I was the first public vice chancellor to be appointed through a competitive process. And I was given then performance targets by Joseph Barage Wanjui, with whom I didn't work very well at the beginning. But when I understood what he was after, and we started working together, the university went to heaven where I left it. Because he then brought the private sector influence in our public universities. I was a man of the cloth, but he brought the business concept. In fact, I now regret he had told me to go to Stanford to study business much earlier. And I said, no, I'm a professor. What do you think I'm going to learn there? But eventually, when I went to the University of Stanford and came back, the result is that tower, the University of Nairobi towers that you see there. We did not get money from the bank, and the government did not loan us. It was just pure, prudent financial management. And it was done through a process where at one time we were working 24 hours. At Starehe Boys Center, Mr. Speaker, sir, I was trained never to trust anybody. But that even when you delegate, you never delegate completely. Because if you delegate completely, then you lose control. So even as a team leader, well, Honorable Sankok is nodding because he knows we have a history with him. So I dare say that I have looked like I succeeded where I'm going, but even when you give me a report and say, well, this is what I have done, I will tell you, thank you very much. Before I sign it, I will go back and check. So there's a long list of what I have done. I don't want to go through them. When I took over as Vice Chancellor, the university had many stalled projects. They were completed. Perhaps the most important thing I did for Kenya was when I went to Canada to negotiate, to compete for money. It wasn't a loan. We were competing for money with Canadian syndicates of universities and health institutions. And I won, the team that I led won 241 million Canadian dollars. And the result of that can be measured at Kenyatta National Hospital through the level 3 laboratory that is there, which is dealing with research on fevers that like Lassa fever and so on and so forth. My major weakness, Mr. Speaker, sir, is that I start from the end. I start from the goal that I want to achieve and work backwards and make sure that it is achieved. Because throughout my short period in public service, I have found out that processes are so good. The processes are always very good. When you want to measure what you have achieved with that process, there is nothing to measure. So as I come before you, I know, Mr. Speaker, sir, that if I don't have you as part of the team, the larger team, then I shall not deliver. I believe, as I conclude, that in order to deliver, you must empower whoever is working for you or all the people that you are working with. And if you are, by the grace of God, taken to lead them, you must lead from the front and from the back, but by example. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Well, for that introduction, I'll now open the session to my colleagues, who I believe have a myriad of questions. What we'll do is we'll have 3 questions from 3 members. Then you respond, then we take another 3. And there will be another round. I see from this side, the member for Kadhiani, the Honorable Robert Mbui will be the first one on that side. The member for Kamukunji will be the second. And the gentleman with whom you have some history, David Sankok, will be the that first round. Honorable Mbui.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Chair, as per the law, we are supposed to figure out, based on the experience of the nominee, whether he fits into the office. Now, from your resume, we know that you've been the chair of the Kenya National Examination Council. And I would like to mention that I know that in management you have to do proper consultation and planning. Now, there's two issues that are affecting our candidates, and I would like you to give us your opinion. First one is on the issue of exam registration. We know that over 370,000 candidates this year will be affected from sitting their exams by virtue of the fact that they do not have birth certificates, which is not a problem of their own causing because there is a delay in the issuance of birth certificates. I would like to understand, did you do consultation with the teachers to be able to come up with this directive? And how are you going to handle it? Because the year is rolling and I think the deadline is also passed. On the same issue, when we are doing exams every year, you have, there is these center managers. From your office, you issued directives and regulations that stated that the head teachers or principals will be the center managers. And you also indicated that nobody else would be expected to be in the schooling institution during the time of exams. Now, these are the issues that we've noted, that one of the things is that the principal would be expected to collect exams at 6 a.m. At that time, of course, he's not in the center, so who takes care of the children? Then who transports the material? Who cooks for the learners? Who picks calls for the institution? Who makes payments? So had you thought through that process before you came up with those directives? It's important because this really is also part of what you'll be looking over. Sorry.
Honorable Yusuf Hassan.
Thank you, Chair. I would first of all like to say that I'm looking at your vast experience in training and development, mostly education. If you look at the Ministry of Education now, it is faced with enormous problems in terms of performance, in terms of delivery. There is a big gap between underdeveloped areas of our country that are completely left out of the educational process and the centers. If you were to be selected for this position, what immediate changes would you bring about to make sure that, in fact, this country works for everybody, the poor, the weak, the peripheries, the underdeveloped, and that we build up our educational system and create a winning nation? The second aspect of my question relates to the problem of corruption. What is your take on that? Our country is now engulfed in a number of cases that have come out of serious corruption in different parts of the government. What do you think is the remedy for that? And how would you tackle it if you are given the opportunity of becoming our Secretary of State for Education? And finally, to that question, is what advice would you give the executive and the government, now since you're coming from outside, on how to address, to prevent and fight corruption in our country? Thank you.
Finally, this first round, David Sankok.
Thank you, Chair, and let me declare a conflict of interest since he was my dean in the University of Nairobi. As Chair, on that point of conflict of interest, Article 77(1) of our Constitution prohibits a full state officer from participating in any other gainful employment. Prof, you hold positions in public offices like chairpersons of school boards and among other association boards. If appointed, how will you ensure there is no existence of conflict of interest? Chair, again, Article 241(4) of our Constitution Article 246(4) of our Constitution, Article 250(4) again of our Constitution, and to be specific, Article 132 talk of regional and gender balancing in all the appointments that have been done. And I'm sure now there will be several boards under him. And from the Ministry of Education that will be going, he will be in the same community. He comes from the same community with the CAS and also the administrative, I think the Director of Administration, that is Ochola. And again, we will be having 3 cabinet secretaries from one county, that is Siaya County. So, in the Ministry of Education, how will he, when he appoints CEOs and chairman of boards or directors, he will try to balance so that the other part of this nation get also a cake in the Ministry of Education.
Very well. Professor Magoha.
I want to say that I also have conflict of interest with Oli Sankok. I was his leader. Today he is my leader, asking me very tough questions. Mr. Speaker, sir, with regard to the question from member for Katiani regarding NEC, on the issue, let me start very early from this answer that if by the grace of God I am appointed, because I believe that it is God through the president who nominated me, because I don't lobby, I am completely apolitical. I'm a thoroughbred professional, and I will die for it. So if by the grace of God you approve my appointment, I want to start by saying that under my watch, no child will be denied ability to take the examinations. That's point number 1. Point number 2, I strongly believe that we are all serving one government, one people and one government. And through active and continuous consultation, by the grace of God, everything I have touched in the past, I have always succeeded. Failure has never been in my vocabulary. So I don't see a situation where we are not going to be able to ensure that by the time the exam comes, every child in Kenya has a birth certificate and has joined NEMIS, because this is where the government wants us to go. And this I will do by working with my other colleagues in cabinet and by working with you, honorable members of parliament. On the second part of the question, with regard to center managers, I would like to say that when I was appointed chair, originally I was not very keen because I'm a thoroughbred university person with not much experience in secondary and primary schools. But having been empowered by the government through the president and the minister then, and I believe through you, we decided that a center manager, because what we did was to first of all go across Africa and find out how we can cure examination leakage, which had become a national disaster. And I went around to South Africa, to West Africa, and then I came and found the answer here in Uganda through containers. And, Honorable Speaker, sir, I have said that when I say I don't trust anybody, it also means I don't trust myself. So I'm not asking you to trust me. Let us just work. So that was the basis upon which we said, let us remove all other non-important people in the school because we have a problem. We will allow a center manager, and that center manager will stay in the school with his 2 deputies. So with regard to all the other things that the honorable member was asking for, the 2 deputies are available there. The cooking can be done, but it is done in the cooking section. There is no need for the cooks to come to the academic section. So because you see, we found out through other sources that even the cooks and the gardeners used to dig next to the class and they are singing answers as the children are taking exams. So we ask ourselves, which is the the lesser evil. And Honorable Speaker, sir, it has worked very well because, like I have said, those who are not convinced should measure the impact of what this has done to our children. And for the first time, you are finding children, because God was very kind, I'm a physician, He gave intelligence in equal measure to all the children, irrespective of your wealth and irrespective of where you come from. So as soon as you attempt, like even me, I was from a very poor background, as soon as you attempt to give the very basic minimum, the intelligent ones will show their heads. And they don't have to come from the Magohas of this world. They will come from everywhere else. Mr. Speaker, sir, with regards to the question asked by Honorable Yusuf, God had placed me in an opportunity where I had to deal with the less privileged parts of this country for 10 years. And I think my experience should put you to rest. Because if I am appointed cabinet secretary, I hope I'll be appointed cabinet secretary with full powers to implement. I hope I'll be appointed cabinet secretary with full powers to implement whatever is required. In my other life, looking at the former northeastern province of this country, I, as Dr. George Magoha, son of Magoha, through requests from many other people, I had the courage to train engineers and doctors from the less privileged people, as long as I was convinced that they were just off by 1 or 2 or 3 points. And so that concept is what I'm going to use here. My only regret, Mr. Speaker, is that even when you give them that access, when they complete, they don't go to their region. They either stay in Nairobi or they go out of the country. On the issue, so I will fight for equity. And if I am blocked, Mr. Speaker, sir, with your permission, if anybody intends to block me from doing what the President wants me to do, then I will say I'm not the correct person to take the job. Because I must treat every Kenyan child as a faceless child, without fear or favor. On the issue of corruption, everybody knows that corruption has reached pandemic levels. I expect that each one of us must play his own part, to the extent that if you are required to earn a wage, you must work for that wage. My courage must be coming from God, because I'm not afraid of anybody. If I find that you are earning money that is not yours, it is a choice that you have made on your own, and you must therefore face the consequences. But having said so, I also believe in giving people second chance, and my experience at NEC has shown me that some of the people we should have, at NEC I was told, go and do 1, 2, 3. We interviewed everybody else, and we found about 100 people whom we would have told to go home. But having served at the University of Nairobi and transformed there, I have noticed that over 95% of them have now been transformed, and they have made NEC what it is today. So I'm not going to say, when I meet you and I find you have not been working, you will go. No, I will tell you this is what you have to do. If you can't do it, there are many other people who can do it. So, and the point here is that it will involve all of us, the Honorable Member of Parliament, myself, and the public. Mr. Speaker, sir, I would like to believe, honorable members of parliament, that I have been nominated here because of what I can offer. If I was nominated here to represent the Jaluos, then I would ask you not to approve my appointment. Because when I take this appointment, I come from a region, right? But if you want me to serve political interest, with all due respect and humility, I am the wrong person for that appointment. I would like to see Kenya as a nation. I would not like to be taken to a silo where you say, well, you represent Siaya. God forbid. And even if you are to ask His Excellency, the President, in his wisdom, I think he knows why he has brought me here. If we are serious that we are a people that want change, then I'm thinking like the President, because what I do personally myself, and you can go to the University of Nairobi the years I was there, when you look for talent in the group, every region will come there automatically. Like I've told you, there's an intelligent person in every community. So the bottom line is ability to perform the task that you want. And even throughout my life during interviews, God forbid, but if you are not able to do the job, excuse me please, it doesn't matter who you are. That is why Nairobi, that's why the University of Nairobi was transformed into what it was. If I had said, let me first of all check, are you a Jaluo? And secondly, do you come from Siaya? That university would never have woken up. The examples I have, for example, my most loyal bodyguard, Mr. To Kiplangat, for 10 years. Why was he not a Jaluo? So I'm not going to be taken to that level. And please don't take me there, because I feel that if I can't serve the nation, then you let me do other things. I can do other things. In terms of regional and gender balance, I am very much aware of the legal requirements, including the people who are living with disability, Honorable Sankok. And I can assure you that I am a warrior in that section. I know that we are required to get at least 5% when you are employing of people with disability. But being disabled is not enough. You first of all must be able to do the task that we want. And I hope I'm talking very strongly here, Honorable Speaker, sir, because if I'm not able to do this, I shall not give you results. And I'm not one of those people who wants to come and stay here for 3.5 years, and then when you say, well, what did Professor leave in the ministry? They are very good processes, but there's nothing you can measure. So I hope together, with your understanding, I should be able to make a difference. Thank you very much.
Looks like Professor has woken up everybody.
Yeah.
Let me begin with...
No, I'm ready.
No, I can see all of you. I can see all of you. I can see the Honorable John Bandy, and because there appear to be more on this side, and the Honorable, now there will be the issue of gender, Rachel Nyamai there, and okay, the Honorable Jimmy Angweni on account of age. 3. We start with the Honorable John Bandy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And first of all, allow me to congratulate Professor for the nomination to serve in this ministry. I also want, it's not really a conflict of interest, but just to declare that Professor Magoha was actually my boss when he was the DVC A&F at the University of Nairobi, and I was a senior accountant. Having said that, I have 2 quick questions. The first one, we are required by law to assess the ability, experience, and qualities. Those are 3 parameters of a nominee. And looking at your CV, your resume, and your experience, you have the experience, the ability speaks for itself. So I will confine myself to qualities. And number 1 is the public service that Kenyans can remember about you have been in 2 places. There are others, but these are standing out. Number 1 is University of Nairobi. And number 2 is being the chair of Kenya National Examination Council. There are people who have praised your ability to run or to steer those institutions, but there are also critics. And your critics say that you are too mechanical in your approach to management. When you came to the University of Nairobi, you actually, there used to be a lot of strikes. But the way you dealt with it is like suppression and dictatorship. And you went to NEC, and there were a lot of issues with exams. And you have, somehow, it appears to us you have fixed it. But again, or you are among the people who fixed it. But again, there is the feeling that it is mechanical. Now you are going to the Ministry of Education, where you are going to deal with the NAT, KUPPET, and the rest, who are known for strikes. Is it true that you are mechanical in your approach and you will take it to that ministry? And what are we prepared for? Because we also know that NAT and KUPPET are very combative, and the future of our children will be at stake. And what are the long-term measures that you have instituted at NEC that would instill integrity into the system, so that when exits George Magoha, professor, like you are exiting today, then we would be proud that what you started there would continue. Finally, I want to take you to your declaration of your source of income and statement of your net worth. And just quickly, I've picked out two things. Under your income from rent, and this I'm asking you because you're getting into this office and you must be so transparent. 2018, your income from rent was 2,967,690. 2019, it is 1,472,883. And 2019 is only 2 months. Average rent is 700,000. For a whole year, it should be close to 8 million. How come your rental income has jumped all of a sudden? Is there some project, some property that you developed which got completed last year, which is giving enhanced rental income? And if that is the case, where did you get the funding to do that? Finally, on your statement of net worth, statement of net worth should reflect your assets and liabilities. Offset it and get the difference. You're telling us here you have a home in Nairobi and one in Yala. You have buildings in Nairobi, parcels of land and forest in Yala, including domestic animals, motor vehicles, treasury bills, cash in fixed deposit account, and cash in bank, which are estimated at 250 million. I don't know whether it is because of space, but this committee would be interested in a little more details about what you own, so that after 2 years when you're declaring your wealth, we will be sure that either you have increased your wealth acquisition or it reasonably remains within acceptable limits. Thank you.
Honorable Nyamai.
Thank you, Chair. Professor, congratulations for being nominated. I would like to go to a simple matter about staffing in primary schools and secondary schools. Currently, we have schools that have only 2 teachers. You find a school with a head teacher and a deputy head teacher, and the school has 8 classes. This is a matter that is going to confront you from all parts of the country. We would like you to tell us, now that you have fixed so many things in this country and that you have a lot of experience in education and other areas, how are you going to deal with this? 2 is about Education for Sustainable Development policy for education sector, which was developed in 2017, which is calling for reorientation of education approaches and curriculum, teaching and assessment to address
All right, so we'll try and get that signal back on air because we are having a network challenge. But what's going on in Parliament is the vetting of Professor George Magoha, who, until he was appointed or nominated for the position of the Cabinet Secretary for Education, has been the chairperson of the Kenya National Examination Council, a place he has made tremendous changes to, especially when it comes to how exams has been handled in this country for the last 3 or 4 years, and it's been very consistent. So the members of Parliament are fielding questions, and we got that network problem when Honorable Nyamai was asking questions about his intended transformation, and key among them is the fact that there are a lot of schools in this country that she says will, Professor Magoha will be confronted with, where the number of staff in those schools are quite disturbing. She gave an example of a school where there are only 2, that's the head teacher and the deputy, with 8 classes and students, probably in the hundreds, but with only 2 teachers. Such are the concerns that are going to confront Magoha. Just before then, the minority leader in the National Assembly, John Mbadi, asked 2 questions. Fundamental among them is the leadership style of Professor George Magoha, mentioning when he was at the University of Nairobi how he managed to deal with the several strikes that were during his tenure at the university as the Vice-Chancellor. And Mbadi described it as mechanical, and also asked him how he plans to deal with that. But I understand that we now have the signal. I'm just waiting to see it right behind me here. As soon as we have that signal, we'll go back to Parliament. And all right, he's now responding to the questions. Let's listen in.
Be there. But don't forget that I'm a top grade professor. And that in order for me to achieve what I want, like now I'm going to the ministry, the first thing, if you allow me to go there, would be to study how it looks like. I'm going into a dark room, maybe full of snakes and some other things. I must know what is inside. I don't have to do that in the open. I usually do that in the back room. Most of the consultations are done in the back room. They will even come back to you, because now I'm saying you are one of the most important stakeholders, since this is a national office. Like I said, if you don't know the problem that you have, then you cannot deal with it. You first of all must know what problem you have, and you use the soft skills to ensure that you consult and you consult and you consult. Like when I was at the university, if I was mechanical, I would never have succeeded. Some of the leaders of the university are in this room, and they can tell you how it became possible for me to work together with the student leaders. For example, when I took over, the student leaders used to come to the VC's office, along with their supporters in a group, and I said, that has to stop. I am the Vice-Chancellor, and I'm also a senior member of your society. So if you want to come and see me, please call me. These are my telephone numbers. We shall agree, you are leaders. You select 1, 2, 3, or 4 people who will come, and we agree. And if this is what you call mechanical, then that's fine, because what the students wanted, if it is something I can offer, I shall offer it yesterday. If you want 5 buses, I'll tell you I shall not give you because it is not reasonable. If that's what you call mechanical, then I'm mechanical. Even at the ministry, if I go and meet people who are completely unreasonable, because as you take me to serve the Kenyan children, I will be having the map in front of me. There are things I must take into consideration, like the ASAL areas with people with disability. But otherwise, I am going to serve the nation as a whole. That is why it's not that I don't like politics. I just don't want to be part of it. I am a surgeon, and a surgeon's mind works like this. If I'm called that any honorable member has an appendix, I will go, prepare the patient, remove the appendix, and come out. That has helped me in everything else that I have done. So I stay focused. And like Honorable Mbadi, I am going to start with the objective that I want. Then involve all the stakeholders in that pathway. Some I shall agree with, some I will not agree with. I don't expect, if we agree with everybody, then one of you must be either a fool or one is cheating. So you have to disagree if you are scholars going towards it. And once you have a reasonable consensus in a team, you first of all must empower. You must empower. Like I empowered the students at the University of Nairobi. Like I empowered all the unions at the University of Nairobi. Not through an orthodox means. Like I said, when I say in the back room, I mean you consult the union leaders softly, so that when you come in public, you don't start shouting at each other. That one you can expect me to be able to do. At the end of the day, I am a cabinet minister appointed by the president through your approval. So those are the people that I'm going to serve first. And beyond that, I can serve the other people. Ladies and gentlemen, I am very happy that the suggestion by the president is that I come to the Ministry of Education. So NEC is firmly under my watch. It is even now more under my watch than before. So you don't have to be afraid. But just to tell you the trajectory we had for it, we have changed 3 classrooms in high school, from 1 up to 3. By the time you change the 4th form through the same method, then you'll have a cohort of 4 classrooms who got where they are through normal thinking. The thought of cheating will have disappeared. It will disappear. Because if you are a student who has 250 and you have others who have 250 with you in the same class, you learn better. Rather than taking a student with with the 250 to go and stay in a classroom with a student with 450. The ones with 450 will be running, and at the end of the day, you have destroyed that student. So I am hoping that through wisdom of God and you people and the government, that we shall continue at least for another year, and then you will see what has happened. So I don't think you should worry about NEC. Honorable Mbadi, first of all, when I went to Stanford, I was also trained on financial issues. When you have a lease, the way you are paid, you agree between you and the landlord. Do you understand? And there is also, I believe, I am talking, Honorable Member for Suba, I'm just throwing the question back at you. I can have an agreement which means I'm paid my rent every 6 months. I can have an agreement where it is paid everyone, and what I went is to look at my accounts and declare everything. If there was a renewal of contract at that time, they give you additional deposit, and so on and so forth. So you should be rest assured. But on the issue of my declaration, I am thoroughly organized. Mr. Speaker, sir, if you want to peruse, it is at your level. Every 2 years, every public servant fills these forms. I have them for 8 years. You can peruse where the money came from. It is with government. And I brought them from the year 2009. How I filled and declared. So if any member would like to have a look at them, that's also fine. Because by the time I was being employed by the Kenya government, I'd been outside the country for more than 16 years in an oil boom-rich country. I wasn't so stupid. I was investing money both here and elsewhere. And the trail is there, Mr. Speaker, sir. So I would like to assure honorable members of this chamber that I am as naked as you would want to look. And the documents are here. If you wish to have a look at them, you are welcome.
Point of order. The staff of Secretariat bring the documents just in case anybody has any query. The professor said he's put everything there.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
What's your point of order?
Mr. Speaker, allow me to please notify the professor that we are here to ask questions and to be answered, not for him to give us references so that we can go fetch for answers. I don't know whether it's in order.
No, the documents are here. He's not giving us references. The documents are here. And indeed, you have, if you look through your file, you'll see part of that information, which is the reason why the Honorable John Bandy was able to pick that. It's not giving references to go to the Department of Income Tax. Please proceed, Professor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir, for your protection. Honorable Nyamai. We have a country which looks like a rainbow. And I agree with you that there are schools without teachers. And the question you are asking me to answer will involve all of us. For example, we have over 300,000 teachers who are waiting to be employed. And yet you may find that some of these teachers don't want to go to certain parts of the country, which is a rainbow country. I think it is an issue that requires every leader, including Honorable Nyamai, to help us to move forward. There are issues, for example, now, which I will not delve into, where my predecessor had taken another trajectory, and I cannot say anything now until I get a full brief when I get to the ministry. But what I can assure you is that I will endeavor to ensure that every Kenyan child, as much as is possible, is given the same standard of education as is required by the Constitution. The new curriculum, what is my view of the new curriculum? First of all, as a teacher who has taught for over 41 years, from 1979 or so, 40 years, the new curriculum is good. In fact, it is late. It should have been adopted earlier. Because I'm not disparaging Rwanda, but honestly, I've been there many times. And as a proud Kenyan, I would think we should provide the way for them to follow. But they have already adopted this curriculum and they are going on with it. South Sudan has this new curriculum. And the reason I support it is because I've been working for government where I've been on the other side of looking for the labor. And you find that Kenyans have got certificates in folders. And when you look at the person behind the certificate, Mr. Speaker, sir, most of the times, if it's a PhD candidate, you put the PhD aside, then you look at the masters and see whether you can get a master's behind that gentleman, you put the masters aside, and by the grace of God, the person quicks through with a bachelor's degree. That is the problem, and I think the new curriculum is good, and as far as I've done a scan about what is required to implement it, it is one of those things that I shall ensure that I deliver. I am going to sleep new curriculum, wake up new curriculum. The obstacle I expect to have is availability of financing on time. And if you can consider that, Mr. Speaker, sir, then I shall deliver. If I want to go at gear number 5, and your most learned selves want to go at gear number 2, what is going to be measured at the end of 3.5 years is nothing. But I want to put everybody to rest that it is something that is deliverable, and that it is something that I consider. If I'm going to be removed from this docket, it is most likely that one that's going to remove me. And it will not, because I don't consider failure as an option, and I'm going to get involved. Again, I would like to tell the members of parliament that I always leapfrog. Those whom I work with say I'm a non-conformist, and I say yes. I want to get to where I am going by means which are lawful. If the means are not lawful, I go to the law and interrogate it, and we must get where we are going. Mr. Speaker, sir, may I kindly get my file, because I need to refer to it occasionally as well.
The member who thought that you are making reference needs to go through it before you...
Have you seen the declarations? Yeah. And sir, we declare to the Commission for University Education. So your good office can go and get all the declarations from 2003. That's why we declare.
It's called the Responsible Commission.
Thank you, sir. What challenges? I think the only challenge, because we have to train teachers when we are dealing with this issue of the competency-based curriculum, we have to train teachers at a certain speed. That training is tagged with money. Who trains teachers? It is Teacher Service Commission. I know that Teacher Service Commission is a constitutional commission, but I have always believed that since we are going to serve one government with one head of state and his deputy, there is no reason why through consultation, constructive consultation, we should be able to deliver. And as we speak now, I think the launch is going on well, grades 1 to 3, and the curriculum for grade 4 is almost ready. I shall make sure, by the grace of God, if money is made available, that by August, September, we are ready to roll to the next year. That is the way we were taught at Chareboy Center, that you finish your task ahead of time. You don't wait to the time. And the reason being, if there is any issue at that time, you can address it before you get to the time, Mr. Speaker, sir. With regard to my very good friend, Honorable Jimmy Angwenyi, there are about 10 million youth who are unemployed. And part of the problem has been that everybody is truncated to going up towards the university system, where you get a university degree and you say, well, I have masters for 20 years and I have no job. That is going to be addressed by the new curriculum, because the child will be taught how to select what he is good at. I have somebody who takes care of my farm at home. He looks like a genius when he's doing that farm work, but at school he could not add mathematics. So if that person was seen earlier, he could have been developed through that line. So now that the new curriculum is going to give us 3 trenches, where STEM, if you are going to be a doctor or an engineer like us, you go to the STEM side. If you are going to be a humanities person like most honorable gentlemen like Ole Sangok or others, then you go there. But if you are good in music or other things or performing arts, you are selected and you carry on in that trajectory. So even though it will take a bit of time, Honorable Speaker, sir, I think the government is in the right track, and that's why this competency-based curriculum must succeed. On the issue of unapproved programs, I don't know where the loophole is, Mr. Speaker, sir, because you will allow me to comment. There has been a proliferation of universities to the extent that one is asking, are we changing the definition of a university? Oxford University, for example, has 38 colleges, and each of those colleges is bigger than the University of Nairobi. So if you allow me to speak freely, this issue of an approved program could be related to uncontrolled expansion of universities, whereby you don't have enough time as a man of letters. We are men of letters, where you follow approved programs and capacity. You may have a program being taught at the University of Nairobi and you copy it, but you don't have the human resource capacity. The faculty is not there. So since you don't have to have a degree in Kenya, I hope I'll be allowed also to think freely. Since you don't have to have a degree in Kenya, if you went through and got a degree that is not approved, the best thing to do is to look at the whole thing and come out with an informed process where nobody suffers in the process. But going forward, you have to ensure that the degree you are taking is approved for that institution. And let me use my home area at the extent of annoying some of the honorable members from there. I, as Magoha, son of Magoha, I do not believe, and it doesn't mean I'm a rebel, that if you have a 60-kilometer square area, you should have 4 or 5 universities there. Doesn't make sense. And the reason why it doesn't make sense is because the same number of people you have, if they were in one university as one faculty, and the others just were branches of that faculty, it would be, you will produce stronger people, and this problem that Honorable Amwenyi is asking will cease to exist. But unfortunately, sir, the trajectory seems that there must be a university in every village. And for me, you will have to allow me also to think as a professor, as I serve you. But you don't have to agree with me, but that is my take on that one, sir.
You know me. You know me. It doesn't matter how much you shout or hiss. There are certain other considerations. Honorable, another 3 set of questions, but the nominee has spoken quite a lot, and every now and then he completes with subject to availability of funds. So I will give the next first chance to the Chair of Budget and Appropriations Committee. I give the next chance to the member for Turkana County. And after that, just a minute. After that, I will go to, I must balance also the counties. And then get something from Kiminini.
Thank you, Speaker. And Speaker, if you allow me to just go back to the question that Honorable John Badi had put to Professor Magoha on the rental income, I think I would have been happier to hear a more direct answer as to whether there is any increment in rent, because he only said it could be a question of timing on the rental income, but the direct question really was, is there any increment in rental income in the year 2019? Mr. Speaker, my second question is on regarding Professor Magoha's tenure as chairman of KMPDU. As chairman KMPDU,
may I correct him, sir? It is the Medical Practitioners and Dentists Board of Kenya. The union is different, and I've never been associated.
Thank you. As a chair of the board, Honorable Speaker, there have been very many complaints with issues to do with doctors. And maybe Professor Magoha can tell us, is there any particular case, at least in the last 2 years, that you can think of where they have reprimanded any doctor for any negligence or wrongdoing? And 2, to confirm whether the case that the National Assembly, that's before the National Assembly now, of Dr. Samira Soni, who is said to have been licensed while not very well qualified, whether that particular doctor was licensed under his chairmanship or rather allowed to practice. To Honorable Speaker, the good professor has spoken at length about prudent financial management, which is a good thing, and I would really want to hear what measures he will take. One of the issues afflicting many of our primary and secondary schools, especially the day secondary schools, is issues to do with teachers. When government has a policy of free day secondary education and free primary education, a lot of our teachers still demanding fees in the guise of desks, books, uniforms, meals. I would want to hear what the professor will do to ensure, one, that there is very prudent management of the school capitation in our schools, and what he will do to stem the abuse of this policy of free day and primary education in our schools. Lastly, Honorable Chair, Honorable Speaker, I see in Professor Magoha's referees, the first referee is Dr. Matiang'i, who Professor Magoha worked under, one as Vice Chancellor at the University of Nairobi and also at KNEC. And before that, Dr. Matiang'i Amoya worked under Professor Magoha at the University of Nairobi. I really want to hear what the relationship was between Dr. Matiang'i and Professor Magoha, then at the University of Nairobi, and under what circumstances Dr. Matiang'i left the University of Nairobi when Professor Magoha was a boss, before he now came to work under Matiang'i as his boss when Matiang'i was CS Education, and how the relation will be now that Dr. Matiang'i will be in a way supervising him as the chair of the coordinating committee in government and also as colleagues in cabinet, whether they will have a harmonious working relationship. In a sense, I'm asking how your interpersonal relations with someone like Dr. Matiang'i. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Joyce Emaniko.
Thank you, Chair. Professor, congratulations for your nomination. Listening to the achievements of the professor in Nairobi University and other places where he worked, and how he had the courage to take the challenges by the horn, is truly transformative. And no wonder he mobilized the whole country, the whole government in the last exams to supervise examinations, right from the presidency to the cabinet secretaries and principal secretaries. And I don't know whether, I'm wondering whether that will be the norm. My question will be on the teachers. Teachers constitute the core of education, and their importance in student performance has been confirmed by several studies. The TSC, as an independent constitutional body, is determined to professionalize teaching service for quality education. To achieve this, TSC has adopted a result-based management approach, which includes performance contracting and teacher performance appraisal. And we know very well how this has been met with resistance. In light of this, what is the professor's take on professionalizing the teaching profession? What is your take also on performance contracting of teachers? And maybe if appointed, what measures will you take to ensure increased acceptance of performance contracting by the teachers? And finally, in the assaults of the so-called hardship areas or insecure areas, we know there's a shortage of teachers, and sometimes teachers from outside these areas take advantage of going to these areas, get employed, work for a short time, and then move out back to their counties. Is there a way we can think of these teachers signing a bond so that when they go to these remote areas, they can take more time? Because I know of counties this time when we had recruitment of secondary school teachers in the ASAL areas. One of the counties only got 6 locals out of 30 teachers, and I know that the 24 will eventually get out of that county, particularly now that we have a high turnover of teachers due to natural attrition and other reasons. Many of them have joined county governments, and we do not have the replacements. Those are some of the challenges. Thank you, Chair.
Abu Amalo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and Professor, congratulations for the nominations. And I want to disclose that I was a postgraduate student, and I was also a lecturer at the University of Nairobi when he was the Vice Chancellor. Now, my question to you, Prof, is on the localization policy of the teachers. This is a matter that teachers are really suffering. We know families have suffered, families have separated. And Professor, in his introduction, I didn't hear whether he's a family person. During his introduction, he never mentioned. So bearing in mind that families are breaking because of this delocalization policy. I want to hear your thoughts as you go to this ministry on your thoughts on this delocalization policy. And lastly, on the issue of university fees. We know very many of our graduates, they've not got any jobs. And we've had an outcry whereby I know Higher Education Loans Board needs money in terms of extending the money to other people. So what is your thought on this in terms of even increasing school fees? And yet when it comes to the loans, the Higher Education Loans Board is not increasing the loans to the students. But we've seen universities coming up and saying they want to increase the tuition fees. I also want to hear your thoughts on that. And lastly, on the issue of University Services Commission, I've seen many lecturers advocating that if we're going to have a referendum, they want to have University Services Commission. What is your take on that? Thank you.
Oh, Professor. Honorable Kimani Chungwa, very quickly, you are correct as a financial person. There is a unit that I jointly owned with my wife, which had been empty for a while and was rented, and also negotiated rent for the other house at that time. All that detail can be provided if you want. On the issue of Dr. Samira Soni, when I was appointed chair of the Medical Practitioner and Dentist Board by the then Minister for Medical Services, I brought what I've been telling you about into the medical board. And if you want to measure what I've done there, you can go and measure it because they are physical and elsewhere. But on this specific issue, I have always said, and I stand to be corrected without fear of any contradiction, that in order for you to keep working and getting results that you want, you must first of all empower the team that you have to give you the results that you want. And when that team gives you the result that you want, and you check and you find there is nothing wrong with it, I take full responsibility as the leader. So on the issue of Dr. Soni, Soni was registered under my watch because due diligence at that time was not thoroughly done. And we have appeared before a parliamentary committee. And that's what I exactly told them, if you go to the Hansard. And since then, there are processes which are going on to continue determining that issue. In terms of safety to patients, I got a group of ophthalmologists to reassess Dr. Soni, and I think that process is ongoing. And I think, to the best of my knowledge, my CEO is here but is not here with me, he's at the chamber. The report was supposed to go back to Parliament. To the best of my knowledge, I think that report is with Parliament. But on the issue of whether I take responsibility, I take full responsibility. And at any time that I am required to take responsibility, if I'm the one who is responsible, Mr. Speaker, sir, I shall take that responsibility without fear of favor. There was another one on of free secondary school lunch. I have said here without fear of favor that in order for me to achieve what you want me to achieve, everybody must do what he or she is supposed to do. So if you take a contract as a teacher and you are appointed as a head teacher, there are certain responsibilities you are expected to do. You have choices, just like all of us. If you choose to put your hand in the till, the law is there, and I will not spare you. That one you can take to the bank. So everybody has a choice. If the government has paid money and the money is supposed to be used, again, I come from an area near Luanda where maize prices vary, for example, from sometimes between 1,500 a bag and 4,200 a bag. In my kind of management, I shall not believe you if you tell me you bought maize for 4,200.
If you are a good leader, why don't you wait and go and buy when it is at 1,500 and stock? It makes sense. So anybody who chooses to plunder government properties under my watch, I want to assure this committee that I will not be very sympathetic to that person because it's a matter of choice. And I will address it, Madam. Honorable Madam. Then from Turkana County, let's go straight, first of all, to performance. The performance contracting. When the government of His Excellency Mwai Kibaki brought performance contracting and I was Vice Chancellor, I was one of the people who opposed it. Absolutely, and those who are there should know that. But eventually, because it was packaged in a manner which we did not understand as Vice Chancellors, but when it was repackaged and I found out that the only way I can survive as a Vice Chancellor and show people what I'm able to do was through performance contracting, Mr. Speaker, sir, I embraced it, and I believe up to today it is only University of Nairobi under my watch that was declared an excellent institution in the public service in the whole country, up to now. So on this one with the teachers, I think the issue is perhaps the way we are packaging it. And if I find that I have the powers to deal, because I know TSC is independent and the union is independent, the best thing to do is to bring them together and see that this performance contracting should be packaged in a way that a teacher appreciates that this tool can be used for his own good. So I think that's where the issue is. And if there are any issues, we shall deal with them there. But at a personal level, not as cabinet minister, I cannot survive without performance contracting, because it is only what you can measure. It's only what you can measure that you can do. If you know you want a child to have all the skills, competency-based skills, you start from there and work backwards. Otherwise, you'll have good processes and there's nothing to measure. So that's a personal view, but as a minister, I know I have to involve other stakeholders, and I dare say that perhaps it is the way we have packaged it. On the issue of shortage of teachers and the signing of bonds, I could be wrong, Mr. Speaker, sir, but it's not just teachers. Our society, as you leaders have rightly said, needs to reflect inwards. The issue even of parents and children, the issue of all other professionals. Perhaps everybody should be more responsible as we move along. It's not just teachers. Because when I was growing up, if you had a bond for 3 years, you never ran away. But at the university I saw, they first of all bond them, they go and train in the US. When they finish, they ask you for another year to extend. When you now want them back, they are mteja. So it is not just with the teachers. And it is something that it requires a change in mindset of every Kenyan so that we take our country back. And I think I will do my best to the best of my ability on that section. My my honorable friend, Wamalwa, Honorable Chris Wamalwa. First of all, I want to give you my own personal opinion, then I'll give you my personal opinion, another opinion if I become the minister. In my own opinion, I've been born and bred in Kenya. And I have seen, for example, I have a brother who has retired from government. He went to, I think, more than 23 counties. He has 4 beautiful children and a wife. They didn't leave him. I have another sister now who is active in service, one of the county commissioners somewhere. I will not say her name. She has been everywhere. So I'm asking myself as Magoha, son of Magoha, what is it that is special with teachers? I need to be told as a scholar. But answering it as a cabinet minister, sir, I will have to moderate my thoughts because I then have to smell the area and look at it and make a decision that is in the best interest of everybody else. I think that's the way I would handle it, Honorable Wamalwa. I'm a bit confused here. 30 years ago, perhaps 16,000 shillings would ask. Now, I'll just tell you, many years ago, in 1981, I bought a property for 550,000 shillings. And when I sold it a few years later, I got close to 10 million shillings. I'm now thinking like a surgeon. If the cost was 16,000 30 years ago, please, honorable members, what we need is to engage the students and plead with them so that we agree on some form of increment, which everybody accepts. Otherwise, I can't, my intellectual capability dies off when you say, no, you can't increase, because, of course, 30 years ago, I was earning about 6,000 shillings in the university. If I didn't take the trajectory of a vice chancellor, I would be earning about 300,000 shillings. So excuse me, please, what are you telling me? Do you want me to stop using my brain? It is not fair to say they should pay 48,000 shillings. That's outrageous. It is outrageous because it's several 100%. Eh? But would it be criminal to sit down with students and say, okay, going by everything that is available, could we take it from 16 to 20 or 21 or 22,000? That would make sense to me as a teacher. That's why when you bring politics inside, I am completely neutralized. There's nothing I have to offer. And you will have to excuse me there, sir. University Service Commission, well, it is a commission that they think, because I'm one of them, I'm faculty, and I still teach, they still think if there's a University Services Commission, it will solve everything. I may have a different view, and I will need to be convinced as the leader what is going to be the difference. Because if you are given money to spend on behalf of government, you have got money to spend. I do not believe that universities should engage so many non-essential staff. Because the ratio, according to good corporate governance, is 70 essential, 30% supportive. In the university system we have now, it is the other way around. That should be addressed first before you consider this. But according to my colleagues, they think once you make this one, then all the problems will be solved. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
There's a small bit of a question asked by the chair of Budget Committee about your first referee.
Oh, yes. First of all, I want to say, first of all, it is my policy that I never discuss people. But since this is Parliament, and Parliament has insisted that I address this question, I hope I will be protected, sir. First of all, in my mode of governance at the University of Nairobi, I distributed power. All I did was to check how people are working. It was not an ivory tower. We used to meet every week, but I empowered everybody. So if I had a deputy who was in charge of administration and finance, it was not my job again to go and do his work. I had other more important policy issues to do. So if you were to ask me whether I knew even when Matiang'i was sacked, I may not have known so. All I would have wanted was, this is the framework. This is what I'm saying. This is the framework. If any staff, irrespective of who he is, has the procedure been followed? If the procedure has been followed, and I have a legal officer whom I have empowered, and the legal officer says the procedure has been followed, it is not the Vice Chancellor's place to go again and read it. I will collapse in the office. Now, on why I have placed him as my referee. First of all, there's conflict of interest. I am free to make friends. And I want to declare here that it's not just Matiang'i, even the Honorable Speaker is my friend. So I have to declare this. And many, when he's a very bosom friend, so, and I will make more from today. So I want to declare that he's my friend, but I did not appoint him as a referee on the basis of that. I appointed him on the basis of the fact that since this is a ministerial job which I never looked for, and he has been one, and he's the one who recommended me to the president to go to NEC, I thought he would be able to tell you, if you want, what exactly I was able to do at NEC. That is the basis upon which I appointed him as a referee. But I want to ask Mr. Speaker that we kindly don't discuss this any further, because I never discuss individuals in my life, and I think you should protect me, sir.
Now the explanation is the member is nodding in appreciation.
Oh, okay.
The member is now. I want to see going to the coast. Here now, you know. Okay, the member for Lunga Lunga will start. That knocks off anybody else from the coast. Then followed by the member for the nominated member, Honorable Mbarire. And then on this side, that one is a stranger. You know, you can keep your hand down. You know, the way, just like Professor is saying, you know, if you don't belong, you don't belong. So you can see the member for Embakasi is relaxing. Then let me hear the member for Mumias. Other members, you know, even as we sit, like I always tell you, I also know what times many of you made your way in here. Therefore, please hold your horses. Proceed in that order. Mashetani.
Thank you, Chair. Let me take this opportunity also to join my colleagues in congratulating Professor Magoha for being nominated. The country, I mean the government, has the intention of making sure that the Big Four agenda is achieved, which was unveiled in 2018. And you know, we cannot assume that Big Four agenda is going to be achieved without making sure that education is of quality and is equitably distributed. Mr. Magoha, the government has a program or policy that seeks the transition of primary to secondary school on 100% basis. But with the current status that we have now, we have so many primary schools and less secondary schools. So it means in every secondary school, there are more than 100 students in one class, meaning that the structures, the facilities that we have as of now are not matching with the transition that is intended. So I would like to know what kind of plans do you have for such kind of a policy to be achieved in a way that everyone will be comfortable. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, Professor, as you know, with the past 10 years, we have been having unpredictable climate change. And this has resulted, unpredictable climate changes, and this has resulted to some areas becoming ASAL, where we talk of hardship, because some of the areas that we are coming from, we are losing teachers to our neighbors, basically because we have been put out of the program of hardship allowance. How would you incorporate, or how would you plan to feature the areas which are now ASAL areas where hardship allowance is supposed to be considered? And also, as I finish, in your introduction, Mr. Professor, son of Magoha, you did not talk about family, because now you're becoming a public figure. And you know, the position that you have been nominated to is technical position and political position. So this committee would like to know the background of your family, the nuclear family, not the extended family. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Professor, congratulations. And I want to, on the outset, say that I remember you as having played a very key role in the establishment of the current Embu University, which is doing very well. And we are grateful as a county. But allow me to ask you something about the fee structure that we now have government proposing, you know, every year they come up with a new fee structure. And it is felt that to some extent there isn't much consultation between government and the stakeholders, meaning the head teachers association, the parents association, so that you are seen to be more reasonable in terms of how you structure that fees per sector. For example, whether it's tuition or other different sectors within the education. And it is felt that there are certain components of the fee structure that have been grossly underfunded. In particular, the ICT and technical subjects have been greatly ignored or underfunded, and as a result, the children are suffering. And hearing you talk about the new curriculum, if that's the route you want to take of ensuring that you strengthen pupils and students towards their potential areas, then we need to rethink this particular issue. There's the issue of laboratory equipment and chemicals. For example, you only give each student 457,000. So one wonders to what extent that helps in supporting the STEM efforts that we have and policy. The issue of co-curricular activities, in particular performing arts and sports, has been greatly underfunded. So you find that a lot of children with potential don't get to participate in the necessary co-curricular activities within and outside the schools, and travel for competition so that they can be able to fully explore their talent. So what is your position about the whole fee structure issue, and what do we expect to see being done differently once you're in office, or if you're in office? Finally, what is your position on sex education in schools?
Honorable Washiali. Thank you, Speaker, who's chairing this session. Chair, my question is going to be under Chapter 6 on integrity. I am aware that Professor Magoha is a former VC of Nairobi University. And there is a very insensitive, what I'll call actually a very insensitive policy in Nairobi University, where all retiring VCs retain their salary, and we don't know up to when. I wanted Professor Magoha to confirm or deny that up to today you are earning salary, full salary, from the University of Nairobi, and that together with that you have also a researcher, a secretary, and a driver paid by the Nairobi University. And that when the University Council sort of wanted to change this policy, all the former VCCs fought this policy until when it was retained. Now that you will be CS, if you succeeded, don't you think you will frustrate the University of Nairobi, especially the University Council, more in changing this policy, given that many of the higher learning institutions have challenges with their finances? Another one, Chair, you have been appointed by the Jubilee government, and I have also taken note that you are not political. You do not support any side of the politicians or politics of this country or any party. Given that you now need to implement a Jubilee manifesto, because the president who has appointed you is a Jubilee government, and here there are quite a number of things that he promised Kenyans. Are you, in your own conscience, clear that you are going to implement Jubilee Manifesto. Thank you, Speaker.
Who was the third one? That was the last in that category. Okay, very well. Unless the professor would want to, you want to take one more? You respond to this.
I want to start from the back. I am not going to discuss myself before the Honorable House. All the facts that the Honorable Member are asking for are in the public domain. I am full-time faculty at the Academic Department of Surgery of the University of Nairobi, and I have been until when now, if you find me fit to become a cabinet secretary, then I will take leave of absence. The policy that I benefited from was not started by me, it was started before me. And for the facts to be put straight, I retired as Vice Chancellor on the 6th of January 2015. The letter that my good friend Honorable Joseph Kinyua wrote altering that process came out in May. There is no way I was going to accept that letter without a fight. That is the Magoha that you are considering. That is the Magoha that you are considering. No, it is true. Let the truth be told. And the court made a ruling which I am very sure Honorable Member is aware of. So I would like very politely to be protected. But for the records, I did not hire a researcher because shortly afterwards I was appointed to NEC, and I also did not hire a secretary. Now, I want to assure you, Mr. Speaker, sir, that I'm a full-blown Kenyan. I'm a full-blown Kenyan. And I am serving my commander-in-chief. So it happens that my commander-in-chief belongs to a party, and we thank God for it. He thought, and I am sure he was aware, that I don't belong to a political party. You will find that even the Jubilee hard course will not deliver as much as I'm going to deliver. You can take that to the bank, because you will measure what I have given at the end of the process. I will deliver for the president as my commander-in-chief without fear or favor. And let me be judged at the end of it if I get to the job. If you are worried that I'm the type who will start listening to if I'm not listening to Jubilee politics, why do you think I will listen to the other one? I shall not listen to any politics at all, because I believe even the position I'm being given requires that we remain neutral and just work and produce results. On the basis of that, I accepted this appointment. And I had sent those feelings to the appointing authority. And he's aware. And I want to assure you that you'll be shocked. There are people who are singing Jubilee all over the place. When you measure at the end of it, compare with mine and tell me whether it's acceptable. Honorable Barire, my very good friend, actually I know this question, even though you are my good friend, is a tough question because I need to understand what it takes. And perhaps, Mr. Speaker, you can protect me, because when I go there, I will then look at what is on the ground and I can give an informed answer. Because if I was to give an answer regarding my take on this, I would be guessing, and I think it is not proper to guess before this honorable committee. The question with regards to the fee structure, it makes a lot of sense what the honorable member said, and it requires constructive engagement through useful consultations by various stakeholders. I think that's what, and you don't have to worry, because unlike many other people, I leapfrog and go to the ground. So I'm not going to take results from people. When you give me the results, I will go. Like NEC has made me to go to most parts of this country so that I can be able to say, when I'm asked by anyone, including His Excellency, what is the position, I say, this is the way it is. I will not say so because of the report from somebody, because it may not be like so. On issues of sex education, first of all, I'm a practicing Catholic, and I know that my church has a very strong stand on this. But talking as a top-grade surgeon, and having worked at NEC, and having seen how children 11-year-olds, 10-year-olds are getting pregnant, some of them by teachers. And when you check the internet, the pornography platform is open. I ask myself, what do we think we are doing? It is better the parent starts talking about sex to the child, and also the teacher at school starts teaching the child, so the child understands her body. If the breasts are changing, what is it that is happening in the child's body? Otherwise, what the child will do, you are even giving them computers to make it worse. They click the pornographic site, and what they see, they want to try. So that is personal. I am a very strong Catholic, and that opinion is because of my administrative experience. When they were saying we should set exams for them, I said, no, let parents take responsibility. How many of you have sat down with your daughters? You see? So that the sex education starts at home. But I know that there will have to be legislation which you people will have to approve if this is to happen. What I'm going to is my personal opinion, which goes slightly against, actually against my church. But I'm a very strong Catholic, and I want to end it there, Mr. Chairman. On the Big Four agenda from Hatib Mwashetani from Lunga Lunga, it is very true that education is going to be the engine. And it is also obvious that our president perhaps will finish his term when the Big Four agenda are at a certain trajectory. I think the greatest enemy to the Big Four agenda is corruption. And I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, sir, looking at you straight in the eye, that every person has a duty to perform. If you are given a shilling to construct a toilet, why do you have to construct a toilet with 10 cents and the other 90 cents is in your pocket? That is what I have found out myself. And I found out myself because the building you are seeing, the tower, of which I'm very proud, took 2.8 billion only. And I used to go there at 4 o'clock in the morning to check if the Chinese person was there with his people, and many other times. What is happening, and let us accept it. I think government is doing what it is doing, which is very noble. Are we, the people who are entrusted with the money, giving value for money? That is where I'm going to start from. You can't tell me, oh, this classroom has been constructed at 1 million, when I know it is possible to construct a good classroom at 300,000. So if we work together with the judiciary, with everybody else, even with the money that we are given, we can get value for money. But I cannot predict how far I'm going to succeed because it requires many other people. In terms of 100% transition, actually that is the way to go. Because we are talking about a competency-based curriculum. You want to give every child a reasonable equal opportunity according to his ability or her ability. So even though it looks like there is overcrowding now, I think what is driving me to accept this position, I have been very lucky. No person has died for me on the table over all the years, and everything I have done has been successful. Now the question is this one the one going to be unsuccessful? If it is because of politics, I will come to the Speaker and I will go to the President to protect me and the majority leader, whoever is there. Because when you bring in politics, then you can forget about me because I'm not going to play ball. For example, if a school in Laikipia requires 1, 2, 3, I will provide it on the basis of the facts that are there. If we give money to school X, because when you look at the figures that have been used for building, they are huge. They are very huge amounts of money. Have we gotten value for the money? And I want to say, without pointing fingers at anybody, that we have not. So that's where I will start with. And I need your help to move forward from there. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I think that was For the family.
Family and climate change. I think the member spoke also about climate change, ASAL and family.
Climate change. I have a forest and I want to challenge all honorable members to plant forests. Not to Honorable Washali because his area is very forested and quite a number are not Angwenyi, but there are quite a few who come from areas where you can make a difference yourself and tell your people to plant forests. This way we can slow down the climate change. I think that's where we start from because, sir, I'm not a politician, but I think honorable members could do a little bit more by shouting about planting forests. I don't hear it on television, in the news. That will slow down the climate change as we look at hardship allowance for the areas where it's going. And again, it's another question where I will plead that you allow me very kindly to look at the facts when I get there, if I get there. And then I will be consulting you because you see, the difference between me and many people is if I don't know, I'll tell you I don't know. And I will be very, very happy to ask for help because that is being a scholar. You can't come to a place where you think you know everything. Mr. Speaker, sir. On family, I'm very happily married to Dr. Mrs. Odudu Barbara Magoha, who is a gynecologist in private practice at Hurlingham. She's also starting her hand in farming. And by the grace of God, we are blessed with my son, whom I love very much also, Dr. Michael Magoha, who is a neurosurgeon practicing in Nairobi and working for the university. That is my family. Unless you want me to go beyond there. I know there's...
Now, okay, I can see, because I can still see quite a number of hands up. As you know, I still have the power to now become a bit more dictatorial. Don't ask more than 2 questions. Yeah, so that then I can increase the number of members in this round. Start so that I can start clearing now with both sides. Member for Laikipia North, Sarah Korere. Member for Pokot South. Member for Tongaren. And this time our land, member for Nairobi. I know because I want to reduce now so that the next one will be the last, possibly. In that order. And because I also know some of them are going for other meetings.
Thank you, Speaker. Congratulations, Professor, for the nomination. Mine will be 2 questions. Number 1, it's about the inequalities in the education sector. I believe, like you believe, that any child can be talented, regardless of wealth or where they come from. But we have consistently killed talent in this country in the manner of how we give or distribute public resources. For example, when the government says that we give free primary education, basic education to every child in this country, sometimes it becomes, a bit sad, because we know that according to Article 43, education is a constitutional right. But in this very country, there are places, even as I speak, where there are no primary schools, for these children to attend school. And the schools that are existing, many of them are not registered. If by God's grace, as you say, today you are appointed as the cabinet secretary, and you walk to Jogo House, you will find piles of files of people who are begging for registration. Just to register a school becomes an issue. What are you going to do in regard to addressing or tackling issues of education inequalities in this country? Secondly, Professor, It's about the placement in high school after the transition from primary schools. We have created so many national schools, but they are just national schools by name. And the trend that is going on here is you find a child from Laikipia North with 420 marks, you know, and because there is a small school in the neighborhood, in the neighboring Samburu County called Maralal High School, which is a national school, most of these children from, for example, and I want to take an example of where I come from, Laikipia North, are admitted to Maralal High School, you know, national school, and I am left wondering, are there some schools, national schools, that are a preserve of a particular class or a particular region? Is that the equality you are talking about in this country? What are you going to do to address the question of placements of secondary school from primary school to high schools?
Honorable Kosing.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and thank you, Prof, for your nomination. Speaker, I want to ask a practical question in line with Section 7 of Public Appointment and Parliamentary Act. And this, Professor, happened last year in NEC. And reason being that I'm asking you this question because you're going to serve even more people. In terms of your interpersonal skills, when there was a problem of examination last year, 2 honorable members wanted to seek your clarification on them. Of course, you remember the issue of Jebusi, you remember the issue of Chapareria, you remember the issue of Ortum. Remember that cancellation was very controversial. So honorable members representing people under Article 95 wanted to seek your clarification. But when they came, you chased them away, and even you used the GSU to send those members away who are just coming peacefully to seek clarification. On record, those members also asked a question in Parliament, and Ministry came to apologize, indicting you and your skills in terms of how you handle people. Now, Professor, if you are approved, you are going to handle even more honorable members, not even 2. More honorable members coming to seek clarification on issues affecting their schools, bursaries, if there are any, construction, and if there are any. How will you assure these honorable members that you are going to be more humane than you are in NEC? Number 2, the issue of D classes going for TTC, will you support or you will not support? And finally, somebody listening to you today, including myself, will think that you are actually Nairobi University. Nairobi University. Nairobi. There are so many universities in this country, Professor, including Moi University where I was. And they are listening to you, and they are thinking, maybe if you become a minister, you'll only think about one university. What will you tell those Kenyans, Professor? Because should something happen and come on your desk as now the CS, then you're likely to favor Nairobi University against other universities. How will you clear that to the people of Kenya? I thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I must also declare that Professor was my dean when I was a lecturer at the university, and was also the principal of the College of Health Sciences where I worked and became the vice chancellor. And he's also been the chairman of the regulatory body that regulates our practice. That's as far as my interest goes. Professor, while you were at Kenya National Examination Council, there's been massive failures, and especially in the subject of biology, which I think should be close to your heart. In fact, the colleges with medical schools are having a problem getting enough candidates for their medical schools. Now that if we approve you to be the CS, what remedy are you going to put in place for these disenfranchised young people who failed exams, failed biology, and they need to get on with their lives? What remedy will you put in place to ensure that these young people actually go on with their education? Because I do realize that perhaps that happened because your policy, as you said yourself, is to, if you have a deadline, you want to deliver before the deadline, so the results were coming out much earlier, so moderation was not properly therefore done. And the fact that you start from the goal, then work backwards, so your goal was to stop exam cheating, but backwards, some people suffered in the process. So now these youngsters who suffered because of your policy, how are you going to, what remedy will you put in place if you are made CS to ensure that their lives don't end? Academic lives, that is.
Member for Nairobi.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I'd like to say congratulations for your nomination. I want to go to sexual gender-based violence and cut across from not just the schools, but also to the Teacher Service Commission. You recently said in the media about the shutting down of pornographic sites as a way to curb pregnancies. I thought that was simplistic. I think and you touched on parents being taught about becoming open to their children on sex education. But I feel that as a country, we have a crisis in terms of population. And here you are, you're saying that you want to talk to the parents and tell them to contribute a bit more towards the education of their children. But in all reality, the average number of children is averaging about 6. So if we don't take up not only sex education, but also, you know, one of your, if you're going to go by the SDGs, number 4.6 is youth and adult literacy. I feel that there's a way that you could not absolve yourself of responsibility by virtue of the fact that you're Catholic, but also recognize the fact that every country has limited resources and can only sustain a certain amount of population. Tom Mboya said that in the 60s. Moi Kibaki, who's a staunch Catholic, also said that. So rather than leave it to the parents alone, or even not get involved in educating the parents, because it's one of your mandates to also, under target 4.6 of the SDGs, to make sure that youth and adult education is enhanced. And I just felt that I wanted to see that you were a bit more committed in terms of trying to ensure that we don't have sexual gender-based violence. None of the public universities have got a sex policy. Students are raped, they have no recourse. Teachers who apply to the Teacher Service Commission are asked for sexual favors. Then, of course, there's favoritism and tribalism that also happens in most of our institutions. So I want to know how you're going to deal with that globally. And then there's also the question, I'm in the Health Committee and Kenyatta University Hospital. Given your medical background, Kenyatta University Hospital has been given to the Ministry of Health. I know that many university hospitals like Harvard, Duke University, Johns Hopkins are run by universities, and they're very good in terms of improving healthcare. We have universal healthcare. Has it ever dawned on you that maybe you should think about how the Ministry of Education can convince the presidency to look at being responsible for running the hospital instead of it going to the health ministry? Has that crossed your mind? Have you had any thoughts in that area? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I will start with my MP, my Honorable MP, Esther Passaris. And I will start from the bottom. Kenyatta University Hospital. When I was at the University of Nairobi, and most of the doctors there, the faculty there, think that I should change them because they wanted the University of Nairobi to build a University of Nairobi teaching hospital. There I was at the helm of things, adding cents and shillings to get the university running. I knew for sure that it was not as simple, it was not just as simple as building the hospital. And the chicken have come home to roost because the hospital at Kenyatta was built by government for the university. Now, for those who know how much it costs in terms of shillings and cents to run the hospital, including your most humble honorable members, where you say, no, this patient should not be detained because it is inhuman. I did not build a hospital, and I thank God I didn't. If the hospital was given to the university, and I'm not talking for or against the university, you'll have two parallel animals looking for money, and in one of them, which is the hospital, you have to constantly write off, because we have a section of the people who end up at this hospital are people who cannot afford to pay what is required. So it is a debatable issue. Maybe going forward, Honorable Speaker, it will be possible for the universities to run those universities you have mentioned have huge endowment funds. Stanford, where I went, has billions of dollars in endowment funds. I am the one who started the University of Nairobi Alumni Association. And I don't know how many of the honorable members who went there here are actually members and are contributing to it. If Kenyatta University has a strong financial base, where you can say, okay, 10% can go to running the hospital, then it will run. But for now, I would like to support government's decision that the Ministry of Health be mandated to run the hospital within necessary budget lines. I couldn't agree with you more, Honorable Speaker, about the way to solve the problem of gender-based violence, the problem of early pregnancies. You may call what I'm going to do knee-jerk reactions. Yes. May God protect you if I give you my child, where I represent the government, and the child is 9 years, and you tell that child to open her legs for you. May God protect you. That is what I'm going to do immediately as we move, because I'm going to be moving around. But going forward, we require stakeholder engagement so that the children are actually aware of their bodies, because they have access to their bodies elsewhere where they don't have informed, and that's my opinion. That's what I'm saying. You will be involved, Honorable Pasaris, through the Speaker, that you will have as input of whichever method we decide to apply to our children will be acceptable. All the stakeholders, the parents, and all other interested stakeholders. It is something that we have to continue discussing, but I think it is urgent. It is very urgent because as a doctor, when a female patient addresses for you, I am a urologist, so I deal with urine. So through my training, I must go to see what we call the private part. You must never think of any other thing, because the body is sacrosanct. You examine and come out. So this is how the teachers are supposed to be, and any other person. But as you are also aware, Mr. Speaker, sir, that even in families now, you are having parents, fathers, stepfathers getting involved. So I think it's an issue of mindset. And I want to thank you for that comment. So I've learned something from you. My brother, we have a brotherhood in medicine. So I think I'm your teacher, but here you are my leader, through the Speaker. The job I was given at NEC was going to be a thankless job. I told the appointing authority that I have not been in primary schools. I have not been in secondary school. Do you think, why don't you take me to Q, which is Commission for University Education, which is what I know? They know, I think this is where I want you to contribute. You go and see. So when I went to the field, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to claim you don't know, I want to tell you that I know. There were no exams. There used to be no exams. Because when I went to NEC, there used to be 2 exams, one for this year, one for next year. And they are kept in a safe which is not, there is no proof. And it is set on the internet. So schools used to go and buy, and I will not name who, they go and buy the exams from NEC, and they keep on zero gracing on the exams. To the extent that you will find, at the end of the year, a school would have 300 A's from 310 children. Now you just think on your own. You think that is normal. Now that is the task I went to deal with. I prayed and my God told me, don't trust anybody. So the real thing, Honorable Speaker, that since the children knew there was something coming from somewhere, they did not bother to read. They did not bother to read at all.
Yet if they had been taught even the basics at kidogo tu, because intelligence is dispersed equally, many would have passed. So we are still going to deal with that problem this year. This will be the last year. That mindset is still there. And I want to disabuse the mind of my honorable colleague. I will tell you that the biology paper that you are saying was very badly done, in my view, was reasonably well done, because people who scored plain A's were 87. To get an A in biology, in any paper at all, if it is a genuine A, there were 87 in the country. And people who got A minuses were 415, and B pluses 1,468. This could be much better, but this is work in progress. And if I was to remain as chair of NEC, I would not have been distracted. And by the grace of God, if you feel I can, because now I'm known by everybody, not because of this nomination. Everywhere I go, I was eating rice in Lunga Lunga in one joint when I went down there. And somebody offered to pay for it. People have been touched because everybody is related to a child. And this is not what I wanted to happen. Why do you think they are happy? I think you are now getting children from nowhere. Somebody will come and tell you, there's a woman who prayed for me in Thika for 5 minutes, saying that the one who seemed stupid as an A and is going to Alliance, it means the other one, they cheated out of the exam. That's true. So I am not perfect, Honorable Speaker, but I have done what I have to do for my country to the best of my ability. And the only thing you might say is that I'm very firm. Yes, I'm very firm, because you will see some of these papers that you are saying people have got zero. Like when in the first year, Mr. Speaker, almost 50% of children in this country got zero in mathematics. And we gave them 1 mark so that they can enter the computer. It is true. And I saw the papers. I wasn't being given a brief. I saw thousands of those papers myself. So we have moved forward, and I think it's better for us to encourage each other. Let me go to my brother, Honorable Posing from Pokot. Now, if I am appointed to this position through your approval, my door will be wide open for all of you. But you will have to consider also that I have targets to. You don't expect me to sit down the whole day attending to you. Then I'm the wrong person. Because when you come through an appointment, I shall open my doors for you. And we shall evaluate what you want. If it is something I can't do, I will explain to you why. I think that we have to understand from the beginning, because you are another arm of government. I'm on the other one. I can't succeed without you. You can succeed without me, but I can't succeed without you. So it will be stupid for me to say I don't respect members of parliament. However, on the matter that the honorable member has spoken about, the facts are as follows. First of all, there was nothing controversial about the results of Ortum or Chebuyusi. I want to say before God and man, because I personally went through all the scripts, sir. So there was nothing controversial. When you find that for Ortum, for example, 320 candidates, one sentence which has 26 words. First of all, it is wrong, but everybody has written it exactly the same way. What do you want me to think? So there was nothing controversial. We gave justice to those children. Secondly, on the issue of honorable members, what happened was like this. We were told by the courts in Kenya that we must call the teacher, the chair of the board, and the other government agencies of the area, so that we show them the results. I was guided by the government of the Republic of Kenya. It is not an impotent government, it is a government.
I was guided what to do. And so when the MPs came and they wanted to join that process, we stopped them. I didn't stop them without consultation. And in fairness to us at NEC, they would have come any other day. Because you see, when I'm dealing with you, I must recoil. But if we are going to give people things which are important for them to understand, when you are coming for them, you are coming to bully me as a government worker. It's on the basis of that, and I consulted upwards to the highest level, and I did what I had to do. So if I wronged anybody, may I apologize, Mr. Speaker, but it wasn't because of disrespect. I fully respect all honorable members, both nominated and elected. But they must also know that when I've got a mandate to do 1, 2, 3, like now, what you must understand is this. If I'm going to make a pronouncement which is going to affect this country, I must and I shall consult the appointing authority. And I will be guided from there. And then I will take full responsibility for what I've said. But I don't have to tell you that this is what I did. May I rest that one, Mr. Speaker? I hope it's finished.
One from Laikipia North.
Oh.
Honorable Sarah Korere. Eh?
Yes, yes.
Oh, there's something about D+.
Yes. Oh, the D+. I said before, Mr. Speaker, sir, and I need your protection, that I shall not talk about or disparage my colleagues. It is fair and just for honorable members to allow me to go and get all the facts that appertains to this problem before I can give an informed opinion. Placement in high schools, national schools. I agree with the honorable member. What I'm going to do, you know, if there was no equity and fairness with regard to quality of education, I would never have gotten to where I am. Through the government which was there in 1966, I got an opportunity to go to Starehe Voice Center. That is what I will do. If there is a formula, that formula will take into account all these things. Any child, for example, and I will make sure it is done. I am not afraid of anybody except God. And if I can't do it, the door is always there. I shall make sure that every child gets justice. For example, if there are only 3,000 places in the top schools, the top ones are not all the national schools, and any of those children wrote them, they shall get there. And if we are going to adjust this formula according to the Constitution to take care of ASAL and other things, that can be also incorporated there. So I would say, well, let's keep 5%, because these schools in the north, for example, are not as good as these ones. Can we say that if we are saying the cutoff here is 420, for the north it can be 390, so that they automatically go in there? So I'm not going to get involved in any monkey business. That one I want to assure you. And I think maybe that's why I've been nominated into this process. And nobody, not even the honorable members, will sway me. Because if I can't do, then there's nothing I'm doing. Every child must get what is right, knowing that there are some areas where you have to scale down, you have to tweak down, so that you don't have a situation where it looks like one group is going to one place and another group is destined to another place. There's no reason why a child from Laikipia should not go to Alliance because of the marks. The marks should decide that one. Now, if we have said we are keeping 5% for the then those ones can be done at a later, or you create a formula which will automatically take that one, and everybody should be happy. I think, well, was there another one? Inadequate public resources, places without primary schools. Like I have said, for fear of repeating myself, I think, in fairness to the government of today, enough money has been given to the education sector. The question we must ask ourselves is that, are the people entrusted with that money making sure that there is value for that money?
And I think, Honorable Speaker, sir, you should give me time to, if I am healthy, I will find out very soon, because I'm not going to listen to people. I will go and find out. Because you see, there are very many ways of keeping money that does not belong to you. Many years ago, it used to be 10%. If it was only 10%, we should be seeing results. I believe it is more than 10%. Yeah, so if you tell me that you bought nails at this price per kilo, and I go to the market and find it is not that price, what do you think I'll do with you? But I think it requires everybody else. So people who are using this to take rent from government should think twice. And the reason I'm saying this is that I've been involved, I think, as a, even though one was saying that I only look like I'm representing University of Nairobi, I want to protest, Mr. Speaker, sir, that even though I'm before you, I have certain rights. I have not given any impression. All I said was that universities were proliferating, which is my opinion. But if somebody thinks that I am not suitable for, there should be facts. I've not given any impression. It is a fact that I took University of Nairobi to where it is, and the building I keep referring to is to show my ability to use public funds. So I don't know where this one has come from, that I will only be. If you can even ask some of the honorable members, the library that named me is not University of Nairobi, it is the Embu University. I've not even gone to that library where my name is. So you should not worry about that one. What you might have to consider, Mr. Chairman, as I also wind up, is that in order for university education to be reasonable in this country, there is need to right-size and rationalize the university system in Kenya. Because it's gone, that's a private feeling I have. We need to sit and think. Could it, like the South Africans did about 20 years ago, could it be better if we consolidated some universities and got stronger faculty, rather than now you have somebody with a PhD or whatever, and you try to look at that, he doesn't even know the topic. So that's a private view, and I want to thank you for the opportunity.
The very last. And please don't give too much narrative before the question, because we have taken longer than we had intended. I'll start with the member for Kaiti. Before we go to Friends, member for Kaiti, member for Kilifi, member for Nakuru, Town East. But you see, if you have not been attending meetings or preparatory meetings, you are likely to take us to, and then the Friends. And we'll close with the leader of the majority party. In that order.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Professor, I want to know what is your take on the presidential directive to have the churches take over the management of the schools, because we have seen before former CS Fred Matiang'i once criticized the same, that the churches were exercising unnecessary control. So what is the impact of this directive? Lastly, Professor, I want to know from you, currently there is the issue of ethnicity in the Kenya affecting all the section of the universities and the colleges, in ranging from administration of the schools, of the students, to the universities, and also the appointing of the university councils. What are some of the measures you will take to curb the ethnicity in the universities, and especially in the appointment of the university leadership? Thank you.
Member for Kilifi, Gertrude Mbeyu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. My concern, Professor, is on the many youth, Kenyan youth, who not made it to the university. I'm talking about the vocational and training, technical training. Okay, my concern is about Kenyan youth who've not made it to the universities. This is about the vocational and technical training. Technical vocational educational training, that is TVET, is the top priority in the government development agenda as an enabler for all the sectors as well as achievement of the big priority areas. TVET is also expected to provide relevant, adequate skills and competencies in strategic Qualification Act 2014 created the institutional framework for implementation of reforms, while rampant upgrading and expansion frameworks for implementation. Professor, in your opinion, is the country on the right path insofar as technical education is concerned? 2, Prof. Some of the challenges that need to be addressed in the critical areas of education, how you intend to address if appointed. Lastly, how are you going to address the crisis of trainers in the TVET institutions?
Yeah, we have us to proceed.
I'm here. Honorable Speaker, sorry.
Oh, Honorable Ikaria, yes, the member for Nakuru.
Sorry.
Become a pastoralist.
Yeah, I was a place where there was no mic. I'm sorry, Honorable Chair, for coming late, but I hope Honorable Songkok, I don't know whether he has asked these questions about teachers and students who are disabled. And the question that we want to know is whether there is a policy for absorbing and promoting of teachers who are persons with disability. And Honorable Speaker, about accessibility, most of our buildings, most of these the students and the teachers who are disabled cannot be able, particularly for the schools which have more than one floor, then people living with disability have a problem to be able to access either the classrooms and the other areas of the institution. And the other question is about, I want to ask Wanamago if just whether there is a policy for, Honorable Seri talked about students who have failed in biology. I'm just talking now, and this is a common thing that is coming within our constituency, where kids who have failed and would want to repeat go back to, say, Form 3 or go back to Class 6 to be able now. And the head teachers are saying there is an education policy where you cannot repeat because there is no money that will be sent for. I don't know what you have to say, because most of these students would want to go back to school and perform better, and they cannot be able to join other institutions after maybe getting not very good results. Thank you.
Elisha. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Prof, I think going by your profile and competence, I believe that your DNA speaks volume, because I've mentioned to my colleagues that is only in a game where you get the highest number.
You are just here as a friend, and I will stop you. We are not, now this is the kind of... let's get the next member. Out of order. Yes. Yeah, that's the last question to be asked by the leader of the majority party.
No, Honorable Sankok, you had your chance. Thank you, Professor. Mine will not be just questions. I think you need to look at, if you are appointed, you need to look at Article 153, 4B of the Constitution, so that you are supposed to file reports to Parliament as a Cabinet Secretary every year. And number two, I want you to also, when you get, if you are appointed, to look at the matter of hijab vis-a-vis Article 32 of the Constitution, that say 232(3) of the Constitution that says a person may not be denied access to any institution, employment or facilities or enjoyment of any right because of the person's belief of religion. But finally, and then of course the same with Article 27 that says every person is equal before the law and has a right to equal protection and equal beliefs. These are provisions in the Bill of Rights, very, very important. So you might be the first cabinet secretary, and as you said, you are a performer, so I hope that you'll deal with it. My question now, which I want you to answer, the rest were just comments and for you to consider, is also I think you did very well because on the Dr. Sonia, it's a hot emotive debate, and I saw the CEO of the board here. The mandate to license and do all that lies with the board. Parliament can only recommend to the board. But the story in the chamber is that there is a member of parliament who lost his eyesight in that hospital. There is a governor who lost his eyesight in that same hospital. The governor of, one of the governors is a privilege. So I think as you hand over to the next person, if we approve you and the CEO is here, I think you need to look at the bigger picture. You know, that when you have leaders, if we have leaders and we have other Kenyans who have lost sight because of an operation that took place in that hospital, then I think, and Dr. Samira is the owner, the proprietor of that hospital, so the matter goes even outside herself, but it goes to the hospital itself, quotes unquote. So you need to look at that. And I really want to thank government for streamlining the examination system in our country. But the question I want to ask you now that you will head that ministry, and I come from a region where we are fighting radicalization, we are fighting extremism. What is the solution now to government, not even you as the education nominee, when we have over 500,000 kids who have not attained good qualifications to go to either a technical training college or to go to a university, and they are just idling in the constituencies, in the urban centers. They become victims of drugs, they become victims of prostitution for the girls, they become victims of radical groups, they become victims of... And I think because you have solved one problem, you have given credibility and integrity to our examinations. Now, as a country, I think we need to look at the byproduct that comes out of it. What do we do with them? I think that's the question I really wanted to put to you. And thank you, Mr. Speaker.
No, honor members, you know, I can see several of you are saying there's some small thing which I forgot. Now, these small things will never end. And as you know, you know very well, Parliament sits at 2:30 p.m. on the dot without fail. So you may have your small things, you lost your chance. Professor Magoha.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Thank you, Majority Leader, for your wisdom. I will go and read those areas very religiously, and by the grace of God, we shall deal with them through stakeholder engagement. Yeah. The next question is not very clear. I think it was a comment also.
Radicalization.
Radicalization, yes. So what we do with the wider
byproduct.
Yeah, the brain, the way it works with human beings, it goes like this. Now our mind is now going this side. So it is a problem, as you have said, so that requires a very urgent attention. In my view, even though I've not taken over the ministry, the youth bulge is a reality, and there is need for everybody to get involved. But I think the quick wins would be what we are doing at TVET. But you see, TVET only encourages children who are above 18. I think to put your mind at rest, Honorable Speaker, sir, these numbers are going to go down. They'll go down from next year. Because when you look at our education system, it was all right from 1989 to about 1998 there. 89, there was only one A. People went to university, they did medicine, they passed. Now when you get to 98, 99, 2000, things went haywire, where people now are paying stakes for the letter. And by buying the letter, you push away the intelligent people in the periphery. So you find all people who had no money, who would have gotten B or B plus to go to medicine or engineering, even from the north, they were pushed aside. So the government is already correcting this. This is the 4th year. So you should take refuge in that fact, that if you look at the exam the way it will be done next year, you will be shocked. Now we shall be the way normal human beings do exams, and you will find the numbers are much less in terms of wastage, and the curriculum review has started to address that. By 2027, you will find that people will go into various areas of their competence. So the medium-term solution is there. But it is a problem that requires men of wisdom like you to tell us what to do about it. It's not one person's solution, Honorable Speaker. Then let me now, policy in place. This is what I tell my students. If you are studying, don't study for the whole night. You are wasting your time. Study for a specific period of time, go and sleep. And that's what, is there a policy about, any educational, the issue of access, quality, accessibility, governance issues, those things are even more pronounced when we are dealing with people with disability. But the fact be said, the law now requires that if you are building any building, not even only schools, you either put a lift if it is more than 5 stories, or you put a ramp. And I think the majority of people in schools are conforming. So it is a problem that I cannot give a complete answer about, because I need to go out there and assess the situation. There must be gaps, and I want to give this committee assurance that if there are gaps, I will make sure that those gaps are addressed, because it doesn't require one to reinvent a wheel. It doesn't require millions to build a simple ramp. I've noticed that in schools where they are constructing now, even toilets, they are conforming to the requirements of the policy. So there's really no problem. And even with regards to preparation of the materials, if you take blind people, for example, we take special attention to ensure that the braille is done properly and prepared properly. If you have a problem with eyesight, we produce large prints. And I think the disabled are blessed part. But Mr. Speaker, sir, Kenyans being who they are, there are people who are not disabled that are getting certificates that they are disabled. And I think the members who are senior enough in that organization should stop it, because they are going to, for example, my honorable member is a senior member and is disabled. There are people who will say, for example, I can't see properly, and he comes with a certificate. So if you go that way, 2 million people will join, and there are certain things. Then the last one, TVET. First of all, I must show a bit of my ignorance because I'm just going there. So I will have to do a little bit of finding out what is on the ground. But I know for sure that just like in the main education, the TVET curriculum is being readdressed to take into consideration issues that are going to increase access, to ensure that there is equity and distribution, all those other issues. Because in my humble view, I think that the bulging of the youth in this country, the majority of them will benefit from outlets that are going to come from the new TVET curriculum. Mr. Speaker, I submit.
It's an issue, Honorable Kimilo, you raised.
I talked of the leadership of the churches to their schools in not answer, and also ethnicity.
Sorry, I didn't address. Mr. Speaker, sir, the leadership of the churches. I was very happy indeed because, as you are aware, the Catholic Church runs many churches in this country, and they run them efficiently. Schools in this country, and they run those schools efficiently. Like the school I've been chairing, the Board of Management of St. Mary's School, and many, many others. And the quality of education there is good. But there must be caution, because, Mr. Speaker, sir, you are not regulating the churches. So anybody can go and say he is a church member and therefore or a religious member, and he wants to take control of the schools. So I think before that is done, there is need for a very firm quality control, where you go and check whether this school, the environment, because the environment where we are training the child, given that you want to increase access, but what about, is it a place that is going to help the child go towards radicalization or not? Secondly, the people who are teaching in schools should be teachers who are accredited by the Teachers Service Commission, which is responsible for quality control. You may have teachers who are teaching and all they are doing is radicalizing the children. So I'm not an expert in the area yet because I need to be briefed, but a knee-jerk answer would be that I cannot counter what my president has ordered. Since you asked me in the President of Parliament, I think it is a good idea, but in implementing it, we must be sure that the person we are saying is a religious organization is thoroughly scrutinized before you say, well, take over the school.
Ethnicity? Final question about ethnicity. Chair.
Ethnicity?
Yeah.
In my vocabulary, are you saying final question about ethnicity? I thought I was saying from the beginning, in my vocabulary there is no ethnicity. If you are looking for it, then you are looking for it in the wrong place. I headed a university in Nairobi with the capacity to fill it with Jaluos. Go and see for yourself what happened there. We appointed people based on what the people can offer. So that is the policy I'm now bringing to a government level. So even my dearest honorable members, if you are coming to try to take me in that trajectory, don't even bother, because I will not listen to you. Because I first of all must ask myself, if I want to get palpable results which are measurable, by appointing somebody because he's just coming from somewhere else, I'm shooting myself in the foot because he's not going to deliver. And I want to confirm that when you are looking for outputs, the people from every part of the country come. The law also says we take certain affirmative actions in place. And that's what I've been doing even at NEC. If I see a Turkana, I say, well, how many do we have? Is he able to give what we want to go? If I see somebody from Mandera, I say, well, does he fit the job? If he's with the Jaluo who also fits, I will take the one from Mandera because we are supposed to have a rainbow. We are a rainbow country. Actually, that is my strength. And I know maybe, Mr. Speaker, sir, if some of you will try to destabilize me through that process, then I will disappoint you from here. That's why I'm saying if I don't fit the bill, it is all right. It is well. I intend to serve Kenyans without fear or favor. Thank you, sir.
Very well. Honour members, we have taken much longer than we should have. But I suppose it's because Professor Magoha also had a lot to say and to tell many of you, given his background, which, as you would also recall, under the provisions of the Section 6 of the Public Appointment Parliamentary Approval Act, we are required to test his background, his experience, and I'm sure you all have it. You cannot finish, you cannot complete everything, because some of you are still indicating you still have some small issues. If you approve Professor Magoha, obviously then you will have another chance of firing questions directed to him, and he will have an opportunity to appear before the relevant committees of the House to respond. But suffice to say, as we close this session, to just inform Professor Magoha that we did put an advert in the newspapers as required by the law. That's Section 6 of the Parliamentary Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act, and inviting the public to file submissions through the clerk regarding their opinions about your suitability or otherwise to the positions to which you've been nominated. And in accordance with the law, at the close of business yesterday, we had not, and this is important, we had not received even a single report which was adverse. So we have not had any adverse comments from the public, even those you may have as suggested through some of the questions you may have disagreed with in your various places that you've worked, notably the university and the Kenya National Examinations Council and the board. It therefore means that, honourable members, we come to a close of this session with Professor Magoha, and thank him for appearing and answering questions as candidly and as forthrightly as he has done. And of course, thank him for having donated knowledge to the Honorable John Bandi through that book. So therefore, Professor Magoha, thank you very much. We will release you. Now, what?
He's not supposed to receive gifts. That book is public property.